Recording in progress.
Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us. You know how we have been going on 10 years of bringing you the best Dams Lions podcast on the internet. Internets, plural. And we have a very special episode for you today because we are counting down now officially to the Dan Bowl. The first ever matchup of two coaches named Dan in the National Football League. You wouldn't think that, but I have some trivia here, and we'll get to that in just a second. I am Chris Perfett, the adequate host, at Chris Perfett on Twitter, at Perfett on Blue Sky. I thank you for everyone who's reached out to me. I do live in Southern California. I do live in Los Angeles, and I have very greatly appreciated all Lions fans who have reached out to me over the past week or so on the ongoing situation here. I am safe. And I am lubricated with Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid. It's out now. You can find it on the prideofdetroit.com. And joining me, as always, Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit on Lion. Jeremy.
What's up, everybody? Dan Bowl. Man, it feels like it's been a while since we've been live here. I feel like we treated the bye week as a true bye week, you know? We just got to sit home, eat, drink, and sleep football, which was a pretty great feeling, especially since I kind of got everything I wanted out of Wild Card Weekend. We're recording this before Monday night, and so there's still one more thing on the checklist that I'm looking forward to. But we'll get into why I'm so happy. But it was a great, nice weekend. I feel nice and refreshed, and I'm ready to talk about some Lions playoff football, baby.
I'm going to put a pin in that because I did not think this was a lot of great games from Wild Card Weekend.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Okay. As long as you clarify on that.
I got what I wanted. That's the important part.
Joining me, as always, Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD. Ryan, did you enjoy Wild Card Weekend, and are you ready for the Dan Bowl?
I like how Wild Card Weekend is now married to Thursday college football, Friday college football, then Saturday NFL football, and Sunday NFL football, and Monday NFL football. That's, even though I don't care for the college football playoff system as it's currently constructed, I'm a big fan of getting... What is that? 5 straight days of football?
Of playoff football.
The last listen, man, between this and next week, it's going to be the last rush of real huge amounts of football every day.
Yeah, high stakes football. Whether or not it was good or bad, it happened, and I consumed it. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, there are 8 NFL games left. If I did my math there correct, including tonight's Monday Night Football game.
And 3 of them will be Detroit Lions games.
Oh.
Let me start on the Dan Bowl because I'm sorry, I'm not getting this out of my head. There have only been out of 531 coaches in the National Football League, only 5 of them have been named Dan. 2 of those are Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell. Ryan and Jeremy, would either of you like to guess who the remaining coaches are and why I feel compelled to say that there has never been a meeting between Dans before?
Snyder. Wait, no, that's the owner. Hold on.
No, that's an owner.
That's an owner.
Speaking
Hold on.
of Commanders, that's later on in the show, Jeremy.
Speaking of triggering Commanders fans.
Right.
Dan Reeves?
Dan Reeves is one of them.
Go on,
Jeremy.
I have no idea.
Okay. Are you good, Ryan?
We cannot stump the Schwab.
Okay. The other 2, so you got Dan Reeves. So there is also Dan Devine, who coached the Packers in the 70s, more known for winning a national title at Notre Dame. But the other Dan that would have been a contemporary of Reeves was Dan Henning. Dan Reeves, of course, not in the Hall of Fame yet, but has over 200 career wins and coached for the Cowboys, Broncos, Giants, and Falcons over Cowboys is a running backs coach. So Broncos, Giants, Falcons. So a 20-year career as a 22 career year as a head coach. His only contemporary Dan would have been Dan Henning, who in a very long time being a positional coach was the coach for the Atlanta Falcons for 1983 to 1986 and for the San Diego Chargers from 89 to 91. Now, you might be thinking, how is it possible they could have even coached in the same conference when he was coaching the San Diego Chargers? Unfortunately, Dan Reeves, again, 200 wins, not in the Hall of Fame, versus Dan Henning, whose total career winnings are 38, 73, and 1. Never before have 2 Dans played for a higher stake.
I can't believe you did this much research on Dan's. I just can't.
Dan Bowl. Dan Bowl.
Okay.
Only one can have a goatee. Only one can have a hat.
All right.
All right.
We let you have your moment. Can we move on from that nonsense?
Yes. Okay. I just thought we should get a little history out of the way. What did you? Let me just pass the baton right over to you right away. What did you really learn? I think let's start with Washington and Tampa Bay because I feel like we've got some thoughts on the other games a little bit later. But what have we learned about the Commanders here? What have we, in the words of J.K. Simmons, what did we learn?
Well, I mean, I hate to be like obvious narrative guy, but I think we learned that Jaden Daniels, the moment's not going to be too big for Jaden Daniels. I think we all looked at those potential first round matchups and we're like, Washington might be top of the like ideal opponents because you have a rookie quarterback. He's having obviously an outstanding rookie season. He's probably going to win rookie of the year or offensive rookie of the year. But you're just like, well, once the playoffs come and you're only facing good opponents, sometimes the moment's going to be too big for him. It's their first playoff round. It's going to be tough. And I think we learned that it wasn't, he has a pristine game-winning drive at the end of that game. And the thing that kind of shook me to my core a little bit this morning is seeing that the Commanders have won their last, 5 or 6 contests, all on the final game of regulation. Some of that has been Jaden Daniels, some of that has been their defense, but this is a team that is winning close matchups, and that's usually not a phase that you get into as an organization. Remember, this is year one of, new head coach, new quarterback, like all that sort of stuff. You usually don't get into that winning the 50-50 ball games at a high clip until you're in year 2, year 3, year 4. Like that's what the Lions weren't doing early on, right? And then they finally learned how to win. The Commanders are doing it right now, which is pretty stunning.
But ultimately, you're counting on some regression, right? Is that where you get some solace out of all those last second victories? Is like, well, it's got to swing the other way. You can't keep on throwing Hail Marys against the Bears.
Yes, that's the
30th in run defense this year for the Washington Commanders. But I really want to talk about like how they beat the Buccaneers because I know like it is a game-winning drive at the end of that game, but I do not think that the Commanders really played themselves into a very good position at the end of the game. I did not think their clock management was fantastic. They got held to a field goal late in that game. Before their drive before that turned into a fumble that turned into a touchdown. Buccaneers, yes. But I'm saying like part of this collapse was on I think the story for a lot of people coming out of this. I understand Washington's going to get the headlines because we talk about, we talk about this with the Lions a little bit, that the feel-good story only gets you a year now. And then you become the big bad guy. Well, the Lions are going to play the big bad evil villain to the resurgence of the Commanders. And the Commanders for DC Sports is a big deal. And this is a salve that goes back for a long time to the days where Hunter S. Thompson was writing, calling Dan Snyder a jackass. And somehow the doinked field goal goes in, Ryan. It doesn't go out. But I feel like everyone at home would have thought that goes in if it was a Dan Snyder-owned team. But I do feel like Commanders, to your credit, have been kind of getting away with it and having teams like, the Eagles game's impressive. But then you look at the other teams you talk about there, Saints, Falcons, Cowboys, and now these Buccaneers who this is the second game now that Todd Bowles has coached with timeouts in his pockets and watching a lead collapse.
Well, I think the most interesting storyline coming into this game is going to be you have two head coaches who are not only both named Dan, but are uber aggressive on fourth down and love being aggressive on fourth down. So that's going to provide for a wrinkle that not every game has necessarily, especially with how accustomed we are to Dan Campbell being the big bad aggressive meathead. Well, there's another big bad aggressive meathead on the other side of the sideline who wears his hat backwards, which would be much to the chagrin of maybe somebody that you work with, Chris. Their hat orientation, but
he hasn't complained about that today. Very, very odd how that is.
Interesting. Well, The stat, Jeremy, that blew my mind from last night's telecast was like how efficient Washington has been. They're first in the NFL in fourth down conversion percentage.
It's like 87%. It's insane.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good. And last night, 3 of 5, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They tried no attempts on fourth down. So it's that's something that I'm really looking forward to, is how that's going to be managed throughout the game and the ebb and flow to that.
Yeah, you both of you kind of touched on the Buccaneers' point of view there, and I think again it speaks to, hey, aggression actually works in this league. But you think about the Buccaneers and how they essentially blew the end of that game with, like you said, the aforementioned kind of unforced fumble with Baker Mayfield, and then you get down into the red zone the next drive, and it's that 3rd and 1 or 3rd and inches, and they snap it on the wrong count, right? And it results in a loss of 2 or 3 yards, and then you're at a 4th and 3 from field goal range with 4 minutes left. What do you want to do there? Do you want to tie the ball game up? Or do you want a chance to make it so that Jaden Daniels has to go down there and win the game with a touchdown and not a field goal? And they chose, I don't want to say the cowardly route, because I think a lot of NFL coaches would probably tie the game, because I think there's something about just the image of tying it. Like, well, we're down 3. We have an opportunity at 3. That fits together perfectly. But when you're giving Jaden Daniels the ball back, and that offense was relatively good all game, and they are a really, really good offense. You look at any of the statistic, they're a top 5, if not a top 10, if not top 5 offense in pretty much everything, and they have been consistently all year. You think you're tying the game, but you're not really tying the game if you're giving Washington the opportunity to go down and a field goal wins the ball game.
It is a simple offense for them, though, and I think that's kind of the thing. Like, I've had a lot of conversations with a friend as we dissect this, because it is Cliff Kingsbury, their offensive coordinator. Like, I feel like it has been an offense that has been figured out before, and I think when we had that 3-game win skid for the Commanders, where they lost the Steelers, Eagles, Cowboys, that was kind of the point where there were a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, it's the calendar's turn. This is the Kingsbury offense being found out. I don't know if that's really the case, but they do still run a lot of that RPO that is critical to how Kingsbury runs things. Getting Austin Eckler back, their pass-catching running back, seems to have been a pretty big boon for them in that regard. And it's very hard to stop someone like Terry McLaurin when he gets hot. 7 catches on 10 targets in this game for 89 yards. And De'Ami Brown, also very good in this game, which I know that's on the radar for Amon-Ra St. Brown as a receiver that was drafted before him. But they do have some good weapons, but I do think the key for the Lions looking at this game will not be like, it's going to be like what it's been for some of these other games, where it's like, okay, cool, you've got a good offense, but you can't stop us on defense. And I think they'll have to lean on that. And for a young quarterback like Jaden Daniels, you're going to be walking into Ford Field for the first time with a lot of noise and a blood-starved, raving, mad crew around you. And I'm just curious how that's going to react. They've got it simple for Jaden Daniels right now, but I'm just kind of curious how that translates into a fight like this.
I mean, Ford Field certainly isn't going to have as many Commanders fans as Raymond James Stadium did, or I don't know if it's still called that, but yeah, no, I mean, it'll definitely be a little bit of a hornet's nest for Jaden Daniels, but again, like, that was his first playoff game on the road, and he stood up pretty well. But it's the whole mobile quarterback thing, right? That's kind of the forefront of this matchup. It's talked about a ton in today's Dan Campbell's press conference today.
Yeah, what was the quote he gave, Jeremy?
I don't remember. He was asked because he was asked specifically by someone. Is this a you guys problem? Or do you think you're uniquely tough? Bad at this? Or is this a league-wide thing? He's like, oh, show me a team that's consistently good at it. There isn't, but at the same time, I think Daniels in particular is a very interesting conundrum because, one, I mean, we're still kind of in this period of, is the Lions defense back? Was Alex Anzalone enough? And now they're okay? Well, they didn't really face a mobile quarterback in Week 18 with Alex Anzalone, right? I mean, you can say what you will about the the Vikings, and Josh is a little bit mobile, but he's not mobile. But I've already done some digging into numbers here a little bit, and what's interesting to me about Jaden Daniels is that his statistics, his efficiency, go way up when you blitz him. He is a much better quarterback when you blitz him. 114.7 passer rating when you blitz him, 93.2 when you don't. He's fourth in EPA per play against the blitz. He's 12th when you don't blitz him. And we all know what the Lions like to do a lot. They like to blitz quite a bit. But I think this is, and again, going into something Dan Campbell said in this game, the Lions preach the whole crush the pocket thing. Let's stay disciplined, stay in your rushing lanes. But one thing that does to you, and he talked about this extensively today, is that wears you the hell out. When you can try to run around the tackle and not have to physically go through him, that doesn't wear you down if you have to just physically attack the tackle every single time. And so can Zadarius Smith hold up for an entire game like that? Can Josh Paschal hold up for an entire game like that? Can the rest of the Lions defensive line that is probably the weak point of this team right now, can they hold up for 4 quarters of that? That's, to me, one of the bigger questions heading into this game.
Yeah. Two other notes about that. We all know something else that the Lions really like to do aside from blitz, and Aaron Glenn loves playing man coverage. That's his thing. That's his jam, right? This season, Jane Daniels completed just 57.2% of his passes against man, but he had 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Yeah. Against zone coverage this year, he threw 8 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So how much are you going to see maybe the Lions lean into disguising some stuff? How creative is Aaron Glenn going to get? I think that for the second quote-unquote week of football in a row, that's going to be the storyline. The season finale against Minnesota, it was the incredible game that he called, the I don't want to call it the bravery, but the belief in Amik Robertson to essentially shadow Justin Jefferson. I don't know. Do they feel so good about that matchup that they say, hey, Terry McLaurin is a hell of a player. Are we going to have Amik Robertson shadow him? I think for the second game in a row for Lions football, it's going to come down to Aaron Glenn's ability to adapt and create a specific game plan for a guy who they only have, in theory, right, a season's worth of tape on this guy in the NFL. And the one other thing that's really interesting about the Commanders' offense is they run, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were, I wanted to get my number right, but they led the NFL in pony personnel. And pony personnel is when you have 2 running backs on the field. But really, you have Jane Daniels. So you have 3 threats to run the football when you line up in that personnel. Last night, they ran 9 plays with pony personnel. And this year, they led it in EPA per play. They led it in production. They led it in usage. That's another really interesting wrinkle is how do you handle that when maybe you haven't seen a ton of that?
Your linebackers and Ifeatu Melifonwu, those guys are going to be huge. And Brian Branch, really, right? Because
Brian Branch, yep.
Absolutely. More safety than nickel. So, yeah, they're going to lean heavily on those guys. And again, the early returns are good, but we only have one game's worth of data on that. And see Darnold did not look that good that game. I think the Lions' defensive numbers in that game were at least a little bit juiced by just Sam Darnold being a pumpkin.
Sure, but again, we talked about the importance of Anzalone back, giving the linebackers the chance to do what they do best instead of trying to cover everything too. Yeah. But there is also another side to this game, which is that the Commanders also have to stop the Detroit Lions.
Right.
And in that, I'm sorry, they don't have the dogs to run with it. They just don't. I'm glad. I just do not think that the only real. You can talk about Marshawn Lattimore is a fantastic, defensive back in this league, but besides him and maybe old,
I don't know if he still is, but he was.
No, and Bobby Wagner is not. He's fine, but he's it's old Bobby Wagner over there. I don't
I saw Bobby Wagner make some plays last night.
He did. He did get have a court. I think he was responsible for one of the sacks on Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, but this is very clearly where you feel that there's a distinct edge for Detroit, where it's like, okay, even if Detroit's defense can't stand up against Washington's offense as well as you would hope, Jeremy, you would assume that that's fine because the Lions will win the race to 40 if it gets that way.
They will run the ball down their throat.
For sure. I mean, yeah, the season-long stats for Washington's defense are bad, particularly against the run, and I know that I have to imagine that your eyes light up if you're Ben Johnson, particularly. I think this isn't the Dan Bowl. This is the Ben Johnson Bowl where they drag Washington. I think we can all agree they dragged his name through the mud last offseason after he shunned it.
Oh,
basketball guys.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at some of these season-long numbers, and Ben's just like, all right, here you guys didn't think you wanted me. You guys thought I was too arrogant. Here it comes, baby.
But Jeremy, he already used up all of his good trick plays.
That's right. But the one
is
thing
he going to be showing out for the Commanders' job?
The one thing that I do think is at least a little bit interesting and maybe is being a little bit overlooked is that, one, Dan Quinn is a defensive-minded coach, and this is year one. And so what do you expect from a defensive-minded coach in year one? You expect them to be playing a lot better in December and January than they did in September and October. And there's at least a little bit of truth to that. If you look at their DVOA numbers, their EPA numbers, it's closer to average instead of bottom 5 that it was for the entire season. So it's trending in the right direction. But I think Chris said it best. They just don't have the horses, man. The defensive line, there isn't anyone really on that entire line that scares me. Deron Payne maybe, but who knows if he's even going to play with his extremely dislocated finger.
I have not thought Jerzon Newton's had a very good year so far.
He's a rookie.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's part of their
Frank Ragnow.
He's going he's their interior. He's one of their interior defensive tackles, and I don't. Yeah, as you say, up against this Lions O line, he's going to get. Yeah,
it feels like their best players are super young and aren't I like Mike Sainristil a lot.
Yeah,
and he's having an okay rookie season, but he's not going to shut down Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's just not going to happen.
This is why I feel like the entire read around the league has been that the Commanders are a little bit farther than they should be right now. And part of that is by an excessively good rookie season for Jaden Daniels, but I don't think anyone expected them to be here at this point. And I think a lot of that was what we were just talking about. Look at who their personnel on defense. Look at, they've got some good weapons on offense, but Eckler is aging, Ertz is aging. They have that mix that just really has screamed question marks all year. And I do think the Lions are in a position to excavate some of those question marks.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying, right? They're outperforming what they should be, and part of the reason they're doing that is because of these crazy end-of-game situations that all are falling in their favor. And yes, some of that is certainly skilled, some of that is something learned, but as Ryan was hinting at earlier, the bottom's going to fall out at some point. And I think they're now going to enter the NFC competition where the talent level is too much for this kind of living on the edge is going to work. I'm not saying this is going to be a cakewalk for the line. I'm not saying that it might not be a one-score game. It very well could be a one-score game. I was actually pretty surprised by how big the opening line was at 8.5.
I saw a place open at 10.5. That got pounded immediately. That I think it was Westgate. They got pounded immediately. But yeah, most places are still over a touchdown.
I'm just saying, when you look pound for pound, player for player, it isn't close. It really isn't. The Lions have much more talent. They have far more All-Pros, Pro Bowls, even average level players than the Commanders do. And so the Lions should win this game on paper. But when you have a magical player like Jaden Daniels, it tends to lead to some crazy results sometimes.
Yeah. It's always crazy to look at the Commanders' record and just see that they're a 12-5 football team.
Yeah, they didn't lose a lot of football games.
They didn't lose a lot of football games, but also just an extremely lucky football team. And not necessarily that, you just mentioned it, Jeremy, that it's going to all come to a crashing halt, but it very well could. I don't know if Jaden Daniels, he's played at Pirate Stadium, whatever that's called, right? But as he played at Ford Field in those kind of conditions, that's a little bit different, right? And yeah, they have veterans on their team, but as far as like players that we've talked about who you're hoping to be kind of like difference makers that are going to have to step up, like Saints Drill's going to have to step up, right? Like their running game, as far as like Brian Robinson Jr., they're really going to have to. I think that they're going to have to try to quote unquote establish the run. Like I don't think they want to get into our favorite phrase. They don't want to get into a boat race with Ben Johnson. I don't think they want that to happen at all. I think they want to play possession for possession, and they want to try to play some complementary football. But I think the problem with that is just the Lions have too much. They have too much at all the spots that can really hurt you. And I'm not saying 8.5 still surprised me. I don't think the spread should be that big, but I also think, and I don't want to eat crow about this, but like it was a good run, like good first season, Washington. Like you have something to build on now, but I don't think that this is a game that they stand much of a chance of winning. Competitive, so maybe, but winning, I don't think so.
Yeah. So no excuses for the Lions is what you're saying. No, I'm joking.
But there kind of isn't, right? Like
there is no excuse.
You
over a touchdown favorite at home, you got an extra week's rest.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to throw this out here real quick because it kind of stunned me really quick just on the Commanders. It feels like their last year's Lions in that like this was kind of a historic year for them. This is their first 12-win season since 1991.
Yes, the entire run of Dan Snyder as owner has been miserable for this organization. It has pounded them into the dirt.
It's incredible. And 1991, does that year ring any bells for Lions fans by any chance? The last time they won the division before this 2-year stretch, the year that they went to the NFC Championship and lost to does anyone know what team that the Lions lost to that year in the NFC Championship?
Washington cannot say not in the name.
Yeah.
And I believe Washington is 3-0 against the Lions all time in the playoffs.
They are.
Yeah, and they didn't just beat the Lions in the NFC Championship game.
And then
jeez.
Yeah. So like this is a return, not a return to form because we'll see how things play out. But this is the best team they've had since they won the Super Bowl in 1991.
Yeah, and the energy from the national stage is all going behind the Commanders right now, because a lot of them are DC folks. Like you want to think about Tony Kornheiser, but I did want to reserve a few minutes here to talk about the other NFC wildcard game that happened on Sunday. Mostly because I know we like to give victory laps for people around here. And I know Ryan would like to talk about it because as I said on X and Blue Sky on Sunday, FTP is a lifestyle and it takes 0 days off. And I feel like, Ryan, you want to talk about frauds getting exposed. I feel like we really, really got the dogs coming home to roost in Eagles Packers.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to have spent 10,000 words, however much time that took to write an NFL playoff preview that stuck a 7 seed in the Super Bowl because dorks and numbers.
And EPA and replay. Woohoo.
And Matt LaFleur and everything you think Jordan Love is, but Jordan Love is 20 for 33, 212 yards and 3 interceptions, and looked like to call him a pumpkin would be too nice.
Insulting to pumpkins. And
insulting to the Gord family. No.
Oh, Gord. No. I thought Gord maybe it's smaller, less imposing.
All squashes, things of that nature. All of them.
Jordan Love is less than nothing.
Wow.
Here's the thing. Like my point of frustration is that they've already called the tailor. They already have the gold jacket. They already have everything ready for Jordan Love after he plays really, really, really great over an 8-game stretch. And I'm just saying there should be a quarterback controversy in Green Bay. Quite obviously.
Stop it.
For those new here.
The only thing that was redeeming about the Green Bay Packers was their running game. And even that is like, as a Lions fan, it's like, wow, I'm flattered because imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, right? Like you get your teeth kicked in when the Detroit Lions come to Green Bay last year on Thursday night. And how did they do it? David Montgomery, okay, well, we'll go get a big power back. And Josh Jacobs is cool and fun. But however, there was another free agent running back that came to Philly, and he would have had, I don't know, close to 200 yards had he not slid and saved some face.
Saquon.
I know.
Too
Saquon,
nice.
take it
Nice.
all the way to the house.
Take it all the way.
You got held back from getting the NFL receiving or rushing record, and you're still like holding it in. Like, nah, go run for 70 yards on the Packers to end the season, end their season on an exclamation point.
Can I say, as much as I am glad the Packers got exposed as frauds, I'm not my fear level on the Eagles still hasn't really been vindicated yet by how they played in this game. Like Saquon Barkley is tough, I get it, but like their passing game was not good here. AJ Brown seemed more into his self-help book than making plays. And Devonta Smith is your leading receiver with only 55 yards on 4 targets.
I will say that I think Dallas Goedert probably is going to win Angry Run of the Week, even though it wasn't a run.
Yeah.
But my goodness, the
Triple
thing,
stip arm.
yeah, the thing he did to Carrington Valentine all the way to the end zone was impressive. But I agree, Chris. Like, the Jalen Hurts I saw last night looked like he was still in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
There's still a team that dominates the trenches, and to me that can carry you a long way.
I saw Lane Johnson give up
Lane Johnson posting his PFT
night.
and ESPN, his PFF and ESPN stats and giving up a sack? No.
But I want to go back to the Packers really quick because I think this year has established that Matt LaFleur is solidly the third best quarterback in the division.
He loses his mind in these kind of situations, man.
Coach?
He does. Coach, what'd I say?
Quarterback.
Third best coach. No, coach.
Third best coach. Third best coach. Yeah,
in the division.
Jordan Love's the fourth best quarterback. I'll put Caleb Williams ahead of him right now, just on prospect alone.
But yeah, part of it is what Chris is talking about. Like, that guy does not have an ounce of composure in him, and I think that matters a little bit. And because the team didn't have an ounce of composure in that game, they're fumbling the ball. The game plan didn't seem to make sense to me. Like, nothing about that Packers team screamed someone that was ready to play in the postseason. And you can say all you want about, young roster, but they were just as young last year, and they made it a lot farther. So there was regression this year. Undoubtedly, there was regression this year, and it starts with Jordan Love, but I think it permeates everything. The pass rush was still bad. You change your defense, and you still can't rush the quarterback. You change your offensive line, and you're benching guys in the middle of a playoff game. Nothing about that Packers team seemed like they were competitive, and it starts at the top.
I believe there was an unsportsmanlike penalty that was very, I think a lot of people would consider it uncharacteristic for the Packers. But again, it's something that no playoff team should really be drawing at that point in the game. And it's just, I don't think Matt LaFleur is beating Brian Kelly for a red off at any point. But the man gets flustered. And we've seen him in multiple games where it does affect his decision-making. He burns timeouts. He's not sure how to handle a team going for it on fourth down.
Yeah, he's also a coward.
Yes, he's a very big coward. He cannot handle an aggressive team.
No, I mean, it was to what Chris is referencing is that 2nd and 5. It's at the Green Bay 36. Mm-hmm. Green Bay still has a chance in some way, shape, or form because it's 19-10, and it's the unnecessary roughness penalty that gave the Eagles a first down, put them way into Green Bay territory, and now you're looking at Philadelphia eating more clock, kicking another field goal, and going up by 12. But this isn't the first time that we've seen a Green Bay team lose their head and not show composure, and it's just so rich with irony at the end of the game where Matt LaFleur has comments where he says, well, this is a lesson and I hope we learn from it. It's like, Buddy, who's the we? Like, I hope that includes you. I hope
I
that
hope
you
you're
aren't
sitting down in
speaking on
class.
behalf of your team for a royal we. I hope that you are taking maybe some ownership of the fact that, I mean, Jeremy, remember when we did our first bite with Dusty and we were kind of joking about the outrage that he had when the Packers played the Vikings at Lambeau and he was losing his mind?
Yeah.
It's like there's no way that stuff does not bleed into the way that your team plays, and it's the opposite. It's the antithesis of Dan Campbell and his comments after Dallas, where it's like controlled fury, right? And it's like under Matt LaFleur, it's like Napoleon syndrome.
They're on the high seas out there of rage and anger. The what's not going to come off the high seas at you is Righteous Felon Craft Jerky and meat sticks, because they are even keeled. Each 2-ounce bag of jerky brings you 16 to 20 grams of protein. Each meat stick has 8 grams. And if it's good enough for us, it's going to be good enough for you too. Trust me, man. We love this stuff. I probably should get a new order in here very soon. Try the Soul Survivor. Try the teriyaki. Try the barbecue. Turkey jerky. Everyone jokes about turkey jerky. Turkey jerky is legitimately good. Eat it all. We're going to help you out with 15% off your order using promo code POD15 at checkout at righteousfelon.com. Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania, using locally sourced all-natural Black Angus beef, and they pride themselves on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. Once again, POD15 at checkout at righteousfelon.com gets you 15% off your order, and you help support the Pride of Detroit PODcast. When we come back on aforementioned Pride of Detroit PODcast, we're going to talk a little bit about the coaching searches that have happened, because both Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, and some other Lions coaches have been in the news. And I'm really curious to see if we can remove Ryan and Jeremy and me from our fan perspectives and say which one of these jobs is maybe the best fit for them. And maybe, just maybe, if the winds are blowing, that Ben Johnson might actually return to Detroit. Plus also talking about how some kids tricked Caleb Williams. That's next on the PODcast. Howdy ho.
What's up, everybody? Before we get into the alerts, I want to go over this comment from Phenoms, which I haven't verified, so I'm doing my bad job as a journalist. But we were talking about the Packers and LaFleur, and he says, "Oh boy, you should hear/read the exit interview stuff," which obviously takes place today for teams that were eliminated. He said, Nixon is saying he doesn't want to return kicks anymore. He wants to be cornerback 1. Jair Alexander saying he has nothing to say on the exit interviews and might not be there next year.
Would have to confirm that. I don't know if I've seen.
That seems... both of those things are extremely believable. I would point out that, like, Jair Alexander not being there next year is probably not big of a difference, because he was barely there this year.
Well, I do know Keyshawn Nixon did say, like, back in May that he thinks that, like, he was not a huge fan of these kickoff rule changes. Like, that it kind of changed away from how that just feels like it changed away from I think he was blaming them as like, oh, they changed it because of me. Or like, I believe
Buddy thinks he's Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, or like, I feel they changed it for me was the quote. So I'm not sure. I don't know. But either way, it doesn't feel like he's vibing with the new. That's part of it.
Again, that sounds like whining, complaining, instead of maybe just figuring it out. Nothing
that the head coach would ever do.
Right.
Yeah.
Adaptation, baby.
But I think the one thing that I need to have absolutely dead going into next season is people talking about how young the Packers are and how that makes them uniquely good versus other teams. Is like how uniquely young they are at all their skill positions. And did we learn yet? Like, because this wasn't like a narrative going into just this year. That was like a narrative kind of going into last year too, a little bit. But like this year, it was full force, like pedal to the metal. Like they have the youngest wide receiver corps in the NFL, and man, and it was almost made to believe that like Christian Watson gets hurt and well, oh no, like now you lose Christian Watson and like none of it works. It's like, how sustainable is your football team if it's predicated on like availability, right? Like, my goodness, like
That's
if
a
you
not
remove
very deep football team, right?
I was wondering how much of this excuse for them was going to be because it seemed like near the end of the game, their wide receivers were dropping like flies.
They were.
And as I think you and me, Ryan, were talking on X, like, how much of that is Jordan Love throwing medicine balls?
But also, they were pretty healthy for the first half.
Yeah.
Can we look at Jordan Love's numbers for the first half? They were dog water. Like, I don't know. Like, do I think Jaden Reed is super talented? And it's no Sparty bias. Yeah, I think Jaden Reed's their best receiver that they have on their team.
Yeah.
But and I mean Tucker Kraft. I think Tucker Kraft is a super talented tight end.
Yep.
But like, there is no comparison. Like, you are not the Vikings. You do not have Justin Jefferson. You do not have Amon-Ra St. Brown like the Detroit Lions. Like,
my favorite offseason, I was formulating this idea of an article in my mind sometime during offseason. It's just like the biggest lies that teams try to convince you of in the offseason. And one of them is the Packers are actually better without a true number one. It's actually better to in the NFL to have a bunch of number 2s and 3s than a clear number one.
Yeah.
And
it's
like,
almost like an article about like the best offseason cliches, right?
Right. And so I remember having this conversation on an NFC North podcast. It's just like, I mean, we don't know who their number one guy. It really could be any of them. And then I think it was with Arif. He's like, but it could also be none of them, right? And listen, I think Jaden Reed probably established himself as like the go-to guy. If you need a play, he's the guy you're going to, and he's very talented. But like, you look at the stats, Jaden Reed had 857 yards, Christian Watson 620 yards, and Christian Watson played 15 games, so it's not like he missed a ton of time there. Romeo Doubs missed a little more time, 13 games, 600 yards. Dontavian Wicks, 415 yards.
Like that. You said 415 yards. I thought you were going to say 415 drops.
It's just this. It's that pure offseason optimism Kool-Aid where you're just like, actually, this bad thing is a good thing. And I didn't buy it at all in an instant. And guess what? Now you're at the end of the season saying, well, if Jordan Love had more help in the receiving core. You said he was fine. You said everything was fine 4 months ago.
Three straight quarterbacks of Hall of Fame play. How do the Packers do it? How do they do it? Could it be that the Packers, much like the rest of us, has to undergo growing pains at some point? And I feel like depending on who the Bears coach is next year, I might start thinking about the Packers as the fourth place team.
I mean, Mike McCarthy.
Maybe.
Can we? Okay. How stupid are the Cowboys?
Whoa!
I have something I want to save. I want to save for the podcast portion about the Cow. I can mention it now if you want, but
no. Let's okay.
There is a very funny stipulation about what dragging their feet did to their coach search that I want to say.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say not the Dallas Cowboys. Like, how incredibly dumb is Jerry Jones? Like, that's just Jerry Jones, and that's going to lead into what Jeremy wants to talk about because I know that what he's kind of getting at. But
I saw a great article. I think it was in Dallas Magazine because I follow one of the writers, Mike Paolucci, and just talking about that. This is just. I mean, we should know it by now. Like, I think it's the quote that gets me is like, this is why a team based in the country's fifth largest media market, competing in a sport every other developed nation in the world barely plays, having spent the last 29 years in various states of futility, have become the most lucrative sports franchise on earth. Somehow, like, this all still results in Jerry Jones getting rewarded. We were having a bet in the Fox Sports Radio studios that around the divisional round or before kickoff of one of the wild card games that they were going to announce Mike McCarthy would be back as the head coach because that's the kind of move Jerry Jones would make.
I'm just back.
What?
I thought he was coming back, and I underestimated his incompetence Because I'm like, oh, well, he's waiting this long. They're just dragging out. They're just having conversations. They're just working out contracts. There's no way they would drag this out and then be a week behind on their coaching search.
And also not able to interview anyone who was maybe taking a bye week.
That was good. Yeah, that is my other point.
Well,
But yeah, they can't. If the Lions make it to the Super Bowl, the Cowboys can't interview any of those guys until
February. Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah. But to the Bears, we'll talk about it a little bit, I think, back on the podcast, Ryan. But like, I don't understand. Like, I know that the right move is to call the Raiders stupid today, but I think they made the right move for maybe the wrong reasons. Because if you're going to clean house and you're going to do this in successfully at this day and age in the NFL, you can't do these half measures where you decide alternate between firing GMs and firing coaches. Because look what's happening with the Bears right now, where Kevin Warren is apparently like exerting even more power because he's trying to show that he's the one who controls Ryan Poles. And what message does that say to any coach who wants to come in? Or you've got this situation where apparently like Shad Khan's on a call and Trent Baalke's on the Zoom call, and he's like, yeah, if a coach doesn't, if I need to land the right coach, I'll fire, we'll move on from the GM. Which, like, how the fuck does Trent Baalke survive in the first place, besides being Grima Wormtongue?
I can't wait for Tom Brady's Fox broadcasting career to come to an end after this year, because it's like going to have to happen.
It's going to. Like, I know he can bend the rules as best he can, but if he wants to be, you've got two options. You can either be more involved with the Fox broadcast, you can be more involved as a Raiders owner. But you can't do both. And at some point, someone's going to cry foul, and they're going to bring the whole thing down on him.
I hope it happens this offseason, right? It does feel gross, and I'm not going to say that if Ben Johnson goes that way, that was the reason, but it's clear, and we should save some of this until the actual discussion. But like, it's clear Tom Brady is very much, I wouldn't say running the Raiders coaching search, but like definitely has a hand on the wheel, maybe a hand and a half.
I think at the very least
he wants Ben Johnson.
At the very least, I think it's at least wise for them to let it appear Tom Brady's making moves, Ryan, than Mark Davis.
I mean, right, exactly. Because Mark Davis and Tom Brady could both want to make the same decision, but if Tom Brady makes it, oh my God, the Raiders are geniuses. If Mark Davis makes it, it'll be, oh my God, it's Mark Davis.
Hello, Human Resources.
Yes, it is the Hello Human Resources app to a T. But alerts, Jeremy?
Let me get to alerts on my fancy new tablet that I have now that I splurged on.
Oh, you got one for Christmas?
No, I got it. I just
look at that.
Little Galaxy tablet.
How much?
It was $200.
A lot of people
saying it was a higher model. I almost got the 150 model, and I probably should have, but I'm just like, $50 for a little more.
Treat yourself.
Yeah, treat yourself. Katie from MI, a lot of people saying Dion to Dallas, but like Dallas isn't in a position at all to get Shedeur Sanders. And it's not like they can wheel and deal to get Shedeur Sanders either.
Plus, they also just signed Dak to an extension, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. You made Dak the highest paid football player in the league.
I feel like Sanders is way more interested in the NFL than the NFL is interested in him.
I think it's the opposite way around, actually.
Really? Who's expressed interest in Dion?
Okay, but like now there's been some late stuff from Dion, but we had these quotes earlier in the season where he's basically saying, I don't want to be an NFL coach because I don't want to deal with guys who have power, who have like more power than I do, and could like talk back. Basically, expressing everything that made other college coaches fail in the NFL, like Nick Saban.
Right.
Like he likes the power structure. He likes having that power in being a college coach that makes him an unequivocally like unequipped person to deal with the NFL. Like the antithesis of someone like Dan Campbell, who is there to deal with grown men and treat them as equals. Dion wants to stand on a stage and shout orders to you. Now that works, but it only works in college now.
Right. All right, let me get through these. I'm going to try to go as fast as possible while also giving you guys the proper gratitude. Ryan Toledo, Detroit. 30-month subscribe to the channel says, who do you think has a better chance to beat the Eagles of their two potential matchups? So Rams or Vikings?
Sorry, what was the question again? One more time, just to kind of.
Who has a better chance of beating the Eagles, the Rams or the Vikings? That and I this is a point I wanted to make on the podcast, but forgot. Like, that was the other kind of ideal. Why I thought this was the ideal weekend for the Lions is that now either one of the Vikings, Rams, and Eagles won't be there in the conference championship, or two of them won't be there.
That was the point I forgot to make in segment. I wanted to ask you guys if this was the game you wanted.
It is.
It is
because like I really didn't want to see the Rams or Vikings again. I really didn't want to see the Packers again. Those are just tired storylines, tired teams. They might match up a little bit better with one or two of them, but now the fact that one of those teams is going to take out the other two is awesome. I love that. I love that for us.
Yeah. I really don't want to see the Rams win at all.
Tonight?
I would rather see the Rams win than the Vikings.
I definitely don't want Kelly Stafford back in Ford Field. Because while I didn't go to a football game this year, I would pay the price of admission to go in there and boo their kids. For real this time. Not just like,
come on, no. They don't deserve that.
I'm kidding. I'm not, though. Like, Kelly needs to stop opening her mouth and like putting her foot in it constantly when it comes to like her husband's job.
I do feel, though, that the hype for the Rams is a little less earned this year. And partly it's because we were talking about this a little bit. We were talking about Matt LaFleur being cowardly. Sean McVay is quietly kind of cowardly. And while I think they've been reloading decently well, just ultimately, like, they're set up to beat the Vikings, but I don't know if they're set up to beat the Lions or the Eagles right now.
I think the Rams win tonight, just to be clear.
Yes,
like,
I think so too.
I think they're going to beat the Vikings, and I'm not totally convinced about the Eagles. Like, they probably could dominate the trenches in that game, and that could be enough, right? Because it's kind of like what they did last night, right? Like, they just overwhelmed Green Bay in the trenches. But I still I like that. Like, I still don't mind that matchup for Detroit, though, because it's like, well, you're not going to like overwhelm us in the trenches. So if that's not going to happen, then Jalen Hurts has to beat me. Okay, I'll play that football game at Ford Field, no problem.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not. I feel like, I don't know. I don't want to be dismissive of Washington. I feel like everybody's already being dismissive of Washington. You can't be dismissive of Washington. But
we
Go
can
ahead.
be.
No.
The Lions aren't
sorry.
going to
I'm
be.
sorry.
We can be as dismissive as we want. We don't have any control over it.
yeah,
Let's talk about the conference championship and who the Lions are going to face. I don't care.
why waste our time on that game? Why not? Why don't we talk about Super Bowl 2026?
Yeah, Lions versus Ravens.
Yeah, part two.
But I do think there's nobody left in the NFC that can really, like, pound for pound stand up to the Lions right now. I don't. I really don't. I know I know there's a lot of us fearing like all this kind of stuff, but like coming into Ford Field, of the teams that are left, I'm not saying the Lions can't lose, but like right now there's no reason for them not to be in the Super Bowl.
I think everyone is still underestimating the Eagles. I really do, but
okay.
I mean, they also they lost a linebacker who played 857 snaps for him.
It's a good point.
That's a big loss.
It is a big loss.
You lose N'Kobe Dean for the season.
They've already lost Brandon Graham too, right? They've lost two really big pieces on that defense.
And
we're gonna start playing the smallest violin for them when it comes to defensive injuries.
No, and I'm certainly not like rooting for it by any means. But like N'Kobe Dean he had their most run stops in run defense for the Eagles. He had, he was number one for them in their run stop rate. Like he was their run defender at the linebacker level, other than Zach Bond, who came in and made a timely interception of Jordan Love. I didn't want to let that skate by because Jordan Love threw not one, not two, but three interceptions in that football game, regardless of the fact that that last one was clearly pass interference. But like the referees were,
I was shocked. They already they're like thinking about what drink they're gonna get on the flight home.
oh yeah, like they were like the Packers are dead, and we're gonna that play can help kill them, right? Like as long as we don't throw a flag, that play can kill the Green Bay Packers season and end this game, so we can't
They were probably like, we saw that stat. They've gotten enough yardage via pass interference. Them and the Vikings, we don't need to call another one on them. Just pad the stats.
Just a terrible spot with the pedigree, though. Like, was it Cooper DeJean who ate it?
Maybe.
I think it was.
I can't remember which. Either that or was it Reed Blankenship? One of the two. I don't know. But either way, like
terrible pedigree.
No soul, no timing. Clearly didn't rehearse it like the Vikings. Yeah. Defensive backs clearly rehearsed there.
The Vikings would have made it like a 7-move combo. Like, let's throw you against the ropes for 5 things. And I'm going to Rey Mysterio you for a second here. You're going to counter it.
Whoa. Wrestling talk from Jeremy.
Yeah. Oh, so you need to clarify because Rey Mysterio. All right.
Did he
continue?
I guess I don't know what happened after his wrestling career, but I feel like I can probably guess now.
No.
Can I just say this? Because we didn't talk any AFC playoffs. I saw the referees sign. Well, they were bad. They were like that's why I was asking when we started talking about the wild card being, everything we wanted. I'm like, I would have liked a more competitive AFC wild card because that was dog. That was dog, and I really thought Denver could have been live, and then they just laid down.
I was most surprised by the Chargers like that.
No, I'm not.
That team
again, it's a story of them being a little bit ahead of where they are.
Yeah,
one damn receiver.
But the Texans, to me, aren't a very good team either.
But I think Collins is a fantastic receiver, and he showed you that.
I think the thing that we figured out though is like I think the Texans have like enough on defense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they have Danielle Hunter and they have Will Anderson and they have some really good cornerbacks. And it's like
their corners were balling.
Like you could go on a run. Like Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions against them. Right?
Like Chiefs? Can they beat the Chiefs?
I was about to, So can they beat the Chiefs with Clay Martin officiating? Because that's the other note I couldn't help but notice.
I don't even know who that is. I do. The
Lions
obsession
fans.
over the officiating is out of control. I'm talking right to you, Eric Schlitt. You caused this.
No, but I want to put on Ryan's tinfoil hat for a second. Clay Martin on the Chiefs game, Carl Cheffers to create chaos on Ravens Bills. League wants the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
I mean, clearly. Why not? That's what's going to draw ratings. I mean, that's how they won 15 games. Pass interference penalty week 2 against the Bengals. Little here, little there.
Stop it.
But in all reality, like, what's the spread for the Texans Chiefs game?
Texans Chiefs, I believe. Last I saw, let me pull
I think
up
that's an 8.5 as well.
Sorry. It is Kansas City minus 7.5 on ESPN Bet.
That's kind of surprising.
Yeah, when have the Chiefs beaten anyone by 8 points this year?
Dang it.
49ers? Steelers, they beat the Steelers pretty handily, I guess. And they beat the Texans by 8 earlier, late in the season.
Who didn't the Steelers get beaten by after the month of October?
Oh, boy.
All right. We got through one alert there.
Yeah.
Everyone shut up, including myself, except for when I'm reading alerts. No one asks questions with your alerts. This is what causes us to go forever. Das Gibb, thank you for the 39 months. Says my ears are already ringing for how loud Saturday will be. FTC. I like that. Woodchuck Hunter, 29 months subscribed to the channel. Says 29 months for the 29-point average margin of Lions playoff victories. Whoa. You're setting the bar awfully high.
Austin Mammoth just called you the sound tater in in chat.
I'm trying to get this show moving. Boof Gertz, thank you for the 16-month subscribe to the channel. Now that I have this, I can read the stream streaks again. So Das Axel, 3 in a row. Does 3 in a row just like the Lions this year in the playoffs. Oh.
Super Bowl champ.
That's right,
Justin
baby.
Zane, 34 months, says LFG. Throw some Kool-Aids in the chat. Justin Zane, also 5 streams in a row. Ice Cecil, 40 months subscribed channel, says, wow, 40 months. EHAG. Was that supposed to be an EGADS? Or what's EHAG? Is EHAG something I don't know?
It's probably an emote from somewhere else that he used.
I don't see it. State Nate,
scroll back up.
49 months subscribed to the channel. LJ, 57 months subscribed to the channel. One Pride, 0427. 21 months says, bring on the Commanders. RGA, 26 months. Duckline has been watching, get this, 55 straight streams.
Hell yeah.
55. Duck Lion, I don't know if you're still here or if you just checked in to keep the streak alive, but that's incredible. Joshua Mercer, 100-bit, says, I just didn't want to play the same team multiple times in the playoffs because it's almost like they're due for a game to go their way against us. I understand that feeling, for sure. Nick the Greek, 3 straight streams, says Matt Patricia's Fading Bosoms. Crook, 5 months subscribed. I'm sorry, 50 months. Yeah, we used to have 4 or 5. Okay, 5 months in a row, 50 months total. And then Jason, 21 months subscribed as well. Those last two, the last one was via Twitch Prime, which is always a good reminder, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch watching us, you can jump over to Twitch. You can subscribe to our channel for free. If you have Amazon Prime, all you have to do is create a free Twitch account, link that to your Amazon Prime account, and they give you 1 subscription for free. It does not automatically renew every month, though, so if you did it last month, maybe it's sitting there waiting for you to use again. Use it here, use it somewhere. Use it because it's free money for content creators that you just have in your pocket that you have no other use for it. It's just going to stick in your pocket until you give it to someone. I know right now my Twitch Prime has not been used. I have it just sitting there, and I feel terrible because I'm basically stealing money from content creators. So do you want to steal from content creators?
So you're saying you're going to give that to me if I need a stream?
No, you get my paid subscription every month.
Really? Oh wow! I did not know I'm at that status. That
you are.
Makes me. Well, good news is I think I'm finally trying to do more of those.
You were one of 3, in fact.
Shout out. So, yeah, I'll put my stream in there. There we go. By the way, RC Jones, if you're still watching on YouTube, I live in Los Angeles, not San Diego. I don't know any San Diego bars. I really should find if there's any. I think one of my projects for the offseason, I've told people on Discord, is to put together a master list of Detroit Lions bars across the country. If I can solicit feedback. Like, just a list of all of them outside of Michigan. Are we caught up?
We are caught up. See, I told you I could go fast when I needed to.
Nice.
That's what she said.
That was actually a pretty good senior quote, because I'm vetting senior quotes for yearbook right now, but somebody had a, their quote said, that's what, in quotes, and then, by she.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Oh, creative.
That's clever.
Creative.
Yeah, old school, but clever.
They're seniors in high school, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I would imagine seniors high school, still, they probably know what Skibbity Riz is, though.
No brain rot on stream, please.
Beatty 1980, 20 months subscribed, says, thanks, Jeremy. Here's my Prime sub. I'm not a thief anymore. Thanks, Beatty.
You are a thief.
What?
Stealing from Bezos.
Yeah, eat the rich.
Easy
Eat
with
the
your
rich.
political commentary, Jeremy.
Eat the rich, 1 Twitch Prime sub at a time. Can
you imagine if that actually made a dent? You know what I mean?
Right.
Jeff Bezos sweating his fortunes over. I'm losing money on Twitch.
Free Twitch streams.
Phenom Wow asked, did Dan Campbell seem mildly annoyed with the narrative questions today at the press conference? Maybe a little bit. I mean, I was kind of getting annoyed by them because, like, he's constantly being questioned, and he brought it up. Like, he's constantly being questioned of, like, will the team be focused, or are they too focused on winning the Super Bowl? It's like, what? No? What do you mean? This team is always focused. Like, there's not been a more consistent message from the top bottom than you have to win the game in front of you.
But this is why I feel like I have the kind of confidence in the team is that all we are looking for at this point is like these kind of ephemeral things. Like, I feel like this team is so damn good. We're kind of a little bored and we have no kind of drama right now. There is no drama about this team. The rest of this country, although I guess Stephen A. Smith is now saying the Lions are on upset alert against the Commanders. But besides that, like, and maybe good energy coming in for the Commanders, a lot of people are still have this opinion of there's no reason why the Lions shouldn't be the NFC Championship. It shouldn't be in the NFC Championship. Shouldn't be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl right now. Not because of any kind of unearned arrogance or anything, but just clearly from watching them over 17 games, they are far and away the best team maybe in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
And they've even with the injuries, even with the weaknesses, they've proved it time and time and time again.
Especially with the way that the last season finished, right? Like, you got so close to the Super Bowl, and the whole offseason it was, what do you need to do to get your team over the hump? Like, I know you said it's going to be so hard. And it's like you adopt that mantra, right? You adopt that motto, and then your team, for how long has it been, Jeremy, since Dan Campbell has lost 2 games in a row?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
since early 2022.
So, I mean, like, you would think that a team that's like too focused on the Super Bowl, a team that had, again, and maybe why you got so annoyed, like during maybe the press conference a little bit with some of the questions, is like, do you remember the very first press conference before training camp started, where Dan Campbell tells that awesome story about the Giants team that he was on?
Yeah, they got too complacent. They were having too much fun.
Went to the Super Bowl, lost, but they're like, that's all right. We got all of our guys back, and we're here for the party, and we're 7-9. You know what I mean? Because they, like you said, they got too complacent. They got too lackadaisical. They, we don't need to run in pads. Oh, we don't need, to spend some extra time at the facility. It's like, do you guys listen to Dan Campbell, or do you just skim through it?
This is the guy who had a video after the NFC Championship saying a lot of you guys are just not going to be. This is the farthest you'll ever come.
Yeah,
it's very likely you won't be back here again. We might not ever be back here again.
And I think literally the first question, and I'm not trying to throw him under the bus because there are far more atrocities he's committed, but Carlos leads the press conference with, do you guys feel like more pressure this year? There's a lot of expectations. You're the 1 seed, you got the first round bye, like, you're expected to make the Super Bowl. Does that put any extra pressure on you? And he's just like,
that they didn't have last year?
There's been pressure on this franchise for the past 4 years. What are you talking about? That's literally what he said. He's like, it's been a pressure cooker since I've been here. It's a pressure cooker to get this team off the 70-year schneid. It's a pressure cooker when you finish 9-8 to win the division the following year. It's a pressure cooker when you get to the NFC Championship game. It was a pressure cooker to go into this year with Super Bowl aspirations and go 15-2 and win the division and win the 1 seed. Like, now he's going to be like, oh, I don't know. I got to win the Super Bowl. What if I don't? Like, what? What are we doing?
I mean, and everybody references the Sheila Hamp speech, the press conference at 1-6, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. I don't know. Even though none of us realistically thought that there was any chance that Dan Campbell's job was at risk when the Lions were 1-6 in 2022, there were an awful lot of people that started to like chime in and be like, well, I don't know. We really got to think about this Dan Campbell thing. It's like, when Dan Campbell feels pressure, he pushes back on it. And maybe not even pushes back on it, but,
right?
it's pushes
the
it down.
Comment.
Yeah. He uses it to like lift himself up. Like, the pressure doesn't come down on Dan Campbell. He uses the pressure to push up on it.
Yes.
Like, that is everything
involved there. He dropped an F-bomb as an experiment point out. He dropped an F-bomb today, which I think is the first time ever that he's dropped an F-bomb in a press conference. And it's just like, I think he cut it off. I think it was more like a fuh. And then he stopped himself. But I'm trying to remember what it was. I don't see it on the transcript. They may have censored him on the transcript.
But I think if we can tie this all together, including what we're talking about with Matt LaFleur, it's like this is kind of why you need a guy who can. We'll talk about it a bit with Ben Johnson, but I am starting to see the opinion making its way around like that. Like, hey, rather even talk with guys at Fox Sports Radio. It's like the offensive genius guru is cool to the Colin Cowherds of the world, and that's always going to be what rules because ultimately for them, like their philosophy is you can trade away literally anyone as long as you have a quarterback and a offensive minded coach, you will win everything, which clearly isn't true and hasn't been true, but it's an axiom they will stick to. But there's a lot of other people who are talking about finding, for the Bears, for the Raiders, for a lot of these other teams out there especially for the Raiders who, we'll talk about it, but like I'm not sure what's appealing about that job at all right now. Like what assets besides money, Jeremy? Money can only help you so much because there's not that cap space can't resolve all their problems, especially if Sam Darnold is not on the open market right now. Like they have a lot of problems besides like all they have is Brock Bowers and Max Crosby and very little else in that cupboard right now, and they've tanked their own draft pick. Like I'm not sure. Like I don't know. I don't see it versus a couple of the other jobs out there. Either way, like rather than going for the mad genius stuff, don't you want someone who's going to help change your culture? Don't you want someone who's going to be even keeled? And then you can have, because for every Sean McVay that gets hired, you get 2 hires that are Matt Nagy. Like that's ultimately what it is. And wouldn't you rather just have an offensive coordinator that focuses on being an offensive coordinator, and you hire a coach who's actually going to be a coach, who understands how to handle all of these personalities, all of these things, and gives your coordinators the chance to just do what they damn well do best. And I think it's starting to make some rounds in this copycat league. I don't know how prevalent it is still, but I think it's a question that at least some people in some parts of the media are asking.
I have a take on this, but I want to save it for the podcast.
Okay.
And we can get to that now if we want, unless there's anything else you want to tackle. Thank you, DJ Codeine, for the follow, by the way.
I'll say it however I want, Woodchuck Hunter.
Le Mans, 22 months, says, let's enjoy this run. We're built for more than 1 year. Yeah, Brandon on our website wrote a whole article about that. Are you writing everything down that you're going to get to in the podcast? Nope, I'm going to forget about it and then be like, crap, I meant to say this. And you guys are just, you guys get all of it. You guys get the things that I forget and say during the break anyways, so.
I tuck the stuff away in the head. I try to at least.
All right.
I was about to say, I'm trying to think if there's something else I wanted to say, but no, I don't really have much else. I'm just kind of checking, watch duty every now and then, but thankfully the winds are kind of kicked up a little bit around here again, but thankfully, yeah. I don't know.
Experiment. Literally no one raised their hand when Dan Campbell was talking about the writers in the room that have run the 400.
Run the 400? That's like the hardest race to run in track.
That's what he was comparing pass rushing to that when you're going through the guy. And he's like, you guys know, I'm sure one of you ran the 400, and then like everyone's like,
I can't think of anybody's build on the beat who would be made for the 400. Maybe Dave Burkett.
Meinke was the only one. Meinke's a little skinny spark plug. But,
wait, Kyle?
Yeah.
He's kind of tall.
He is tall. Does that make it harder or easier?
For the 400?
Long legs, longer strides.
I don't know. Like, you definitely... you want a guy... because you run that race like a sprint,
Yeah.
like if it's run the right way.
Right.
So I don't know, like if you're a little bit taller, I mean, it certainly helps. You can eat up more track with longer strides, but you also need to like be fast.
Right.
So, man,
No
Peter Bukowski, May 9th, 2024. I love receipt tweets.
What? Did it just come up on your screen or something? Why did that come?
What's this Bukowski tweet? Hold
It was Morgan. He put it in Lions Talk. He put it in at
Right now?
351.
The Packers have a better roster than Lions, so go make money on this. Okay.
It was the over under win totals for the season. It's like
I like this thing that we're doing in the POD Slack, and sorry for talking about ourselves a little bit too much, but it's this thing where it's like, I'm not going to posterize this person or this post or this article, but if any of you guys want to, here's an article that you guys can quote tweet and shit talk.
Yep.
Yeah, there is a lot of that happening. But yeah, I mean, like that was part of the fun I had last night watching that Eagles Packers game, though, is just like searching names on Twitter and seeing how little they're tweeting or how much they're tweeting through it.
I was watching the game with Alex, and I'm just like, Ryan is having the time of his life online right now.
Dude.
I had a fun night with that around, like, I think it was when Tennessee was getting the shit kicked in by Ohio State. And then again when Michigan beat Alabama.
Yeah. It's just really curious how like a lot of like big media type will tweet during games, but then when Jordan Love isn't playing so well, they don't tweet a whole lot. And if they do, they focus on things like missed field goals.
They're doing the dishes.
I guess.
So,
I don't know.
Unfortunately, the Bukowski tweet in question here is quote tweeting win totals. And the Packers do beat their win total of 9.5. So he's technically right, even though he's also wrong.
Yeah, right. But like, I'm always in favor of bringing up some Peter B tweets.
Right. Almost everybody beat their win total in the NFC North. Except for the one team that Ryan bet against, I believe.
Huh? What?
I said almost every team in the NFC North beat their win totals except for one team, and that was the team that Ryan bet against.
Oh boy.
To make the playoffs.
Yeah. No.
Pocketed that change really easily.
Gosh.
Go make money on that. The Bears making the playoffs. All right, one more thing. MCDC forever.
Oh my God! Sorry. I clicked on Bukowski's Twitter profile.
Uh-oh.
His first tweet is talking about using Jair Alexander as trade bait to get Max Crosby.
Holy shit! You've got to be fucking.
Wow.
And he ends. Here's the tweet verbatim is, if you're going to actually entertain a trade for a high-end pass rusher, like one whose name rhymes with Schmax, don't be cute. You're not funny. Jair Alexander is appealing trade bait. There are issues, but he's 27, was an all-pro 2 years ago, and is $16 million, then $18 million for his new team. I don't know about you guys, but I love cornerbacks who were all pros 2 years ago and have dealt with injuries almost
the entirety constantly of their career.
Like what? In what world? Like the Lions have a better chance of trading Ben Johnson to the Raiders for Max Crosby than you do of. Like Jair Alexander isn't the best piece in a trade. That, like, okay, yeah, you're trading Jair Alexander to the Raiders. You're also trading your first-round pick for this year. You're trading the picks that the Jets gave you for Aaron Rodgers, if you have any of those left. Like, you're trading an awful lot of stuff.
I'm reading through the responses to see if there are any Packers fans with a brain, and there is at least one from Big Magoo says, but he's a locker room cancer and has played 50% of the games in the last few years. That contract is a nightmare.
Even some of the responses, it's like, would their GM give up a 1 for Max?
The one person that gets
the
close
Packers
to it is
they have to.
I would be for all this, but why would the Raiders want him if they're at the beginning stages of a rebuild?
That's always my favorite. Is just like, oh man, this trade makes so much sense for one team, and it makes absolutely zero for the other team. It's just like, oh yeah, I can compose trades that make my team a lot better too if I only consider one side of the trade.
This is a really good trade for the Packers. This is a really good trade. I made it work in Madden.
Right. The Madden simulator says it's even.
Oh my God. Seems like a net gain either way, considering Jair is making $20+ million a year. A net.
Wild. Wild. All right. MCDC Forever, thank you for the 20 months. Says, how about them Wings and Pistons? I
have a theory, but go ahead.
I would just said as I put out on Twitter yesterday, they have me almost seriously considering a FanDuel Sports Network subscription. Almost. I'm not there yet, but almost.
I think that the Pistons and the Red Wings saw the fact that the Lions are now the top thing in town, and they're like, guys, what are we doing? We got to get our act together.
Yeah. That's all it took. Just a little poke in the tuchus from Dan Campbell.
Hey man, I'll use the words I once got out of Joe D about this. Joe Dumars would say that kind of thing. You've got pressure in Detroit to perform, because if they are coming to the games, if the Lions down the street are doing better than you, if the Lions aren't doing well, they'll go to the Red Wings. The Red Wings aren't doing well, they'll go to the Tigers, or they'll go to Michigan, or they'll go to Sparty basketball. Whatever it is, there's a lot of options in Detroit. Yeah. You're kind of in a unique situation where it's like you are competing like no other market for attention.
But also, you see what kind of success and what kind of effect that the Lions are having. And at the end of the day, it is an entertainment product. Yeah. And if you're an owner for any of those other teams that are in Detroit, you're like, guys, if we just get our stuff together, we're going to be making money hand over fist. Yeah. Come on.
I loved Aaron Glenn. I love not only Aaron Glenn was at a Pistons game, but that everyone knew what the Lions defensive coordinator looked like.
Yeah. Well, I was actually at that game too. It was the first Pistons game I've been to in years. And I mean, I literally went from Sunday night, the week 18 Sunday night game, to that game Monday night. And it's just there was no one there. Nobody. We got these cheap ass tickets that were great, and it was wild. It was wild seeing a place that empty and lifeless and all that stuff. And they won, and that was win 4 or 5 of their 6 or whatever game winning streak that they had before they dropped the Warriors game. And you have an all-star who's maybe all NBA, getting into that conversation.
He's gotten better with Jaden Ivey out.
Right. It's crazy. And listen, I'm not blaming Pistons fans or calling Pistons fans bad or anything. The product has been horrible for decades.
It's also Monday night. And everybody. Oh, come on! Don't stop.
No football. That was the first Monday night without football.
It's baseball. Do you really want to go? Do you really It's such a long season. Do you really want to invest your personal time and money in a team that hasn't proven that they're going to be good? It's the same problem with baseball.
They're 500 now, though.
Jeremy, who they play that Monday night?
I had no idea.
Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure they played the Portland Trailblazers for the basement of the Western Conference. After you probably stayed up until midnight at a minimum to watch the Lions game the night before. You went to work on Monday.
I was dead that game. I almost fell through sleep in the second half.
One of your thoughts that's going to cross through your mind in your your foggy mind on Monday is to jump on StubHub to get a couple of Pistons tickets. Stop it.
It wasn't my
Stop
idea.
it. Of course it wasn't. I know whose idea it was. It was a great idea.
I enjoyed myself. And like I love having tickets. I mean, Lions fans are rightfully complaining about how much it's costing them to get in the building. If I can, you get more bang for your buck going to a $10 Pistons game in the middle, game 37 versus spending $2,000 to get two people in to see a divisional round game. That maybe don't get your bang for your buck. But either way, like, it's more realistic for a huge portion of the population.
Oh, to not spend a mortgage payment on tickets?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
buy Pistons season tickets.
Right. There is something that's sad about all that, right? Because I part of my childhood growing up was going to $5 Tigers games and $15 Red Wings games way back in the day. I miss some of that, and obviously you can't do that with the Lions anymore.
I remember even when we started covering the Lions, I think there was a Thanksgiving game I went to with Jerry and Alex. I paid $60, and they weren't even nosebleeds. They were upper bowl, but they were certainly not nosebleeds. But that was the Thanksgiving Day game against, it was, again, 2015, the team had already bottomed out, but they kicked the Eagles' ass that year. They slammed Mark Sanchez. That was, I think Calvin Johnson set a record that game.
Yeah, I think I remember that game. $60 won't get you parking.
No,
in Detroit.
God,
now.
no.
So
God, no.
when I went to the Pistons Timberwolves game last Saturday, it was $65 to like park like within a block of the stadium.
Yeah,
it's like, my goodness, man.
You gotta do some laps. Expand the radius a little bit more than couple blocks.
I'm not making my wife walk like over a mile in the cold to go to a basketball game. She's already being agreeable enough.
Fair. Real quick, and then we should get back to it. MCT, thank you for the follow, and then rating us. Party one, appreciate you. All right, ready to go back to it? Get back to it.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm still really kind of like regaining my composure after seeing a picture of Justin Verlander in a Giants jersey.
Ooh.
Not something I dispatch my brain very easily.
By the way, someone in chat was saying that the Caleb Williams thing was fake. I don't know if it was or wasn't, but I think we should. If it's in the rundown, if we're going to talk about it, I think we
don't need to talk about it.
Okay. I'm just not sure.
I did tease it, but I can just be like, just kidding.
Okay.
I hope it was fake, because if it wasn't, his Madden awareness rating needs to be a 50.
Negative. That was a very boomer set of tweets from him. I mean, not tweets, boomer set of text messages from him, assuming it was him, like where it's like, oh, okay, coach, okay. And then realizing three messages later, he's got to write something.
Okay.
What was it?
Chat
Let's
doesn't
go
know
kill.
what we're talking about. So real quick, apparently some kids slid into his DMs and said, "Hey, this is Ben Johnson." Got his phone number? I don't know. I don't know if he
It was his phone number. It was his phone number.
Yeah.
How did they get his phone number?
Very carefully.
I don't even know who the kids are.
Yeah, that's what. And they said, "Hey, this is Ben Johnson. I'm taking the job. Let's talk." And he FaceTimes them, and it's just a bunch of kids.
Well, before he FaceTimes them, there's also like 4 different text messages he sends him too.
No, I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, there are text messages where Ben Johnson's basically like, "Look, like, I wanted to be the first one to tell you that, like, I'm the head coach," and then there's like a few responses from Caleb Williams, but like I can't track down whether it's real or fake. So I have to say that it's fake, because otherwise, what does that say about how I feel about Caleb Williams?
But a lot of places ran with this, so I've got to say that like Caleb kind of
that is not proof that it's real.
No. I understand that, but I guess maybe they have the video of him on FaceTime and he laughed it off. Unless...
I have seen that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, so
Jedi in chat though. This is Ben Johnson. I need you to buy some Apple gift cards and send me the code.
Can I just really want to read these texts from that he actually sent, that supposedly Caleb Williams sent to these kids. So very excited. So they sent me, very excited to work with you in the future. Great things. Actually, ? Ben. That's the first text message. And they send back, yes, I want you to be the first to know. We'll talk more as the season winds down. And now we get 3 from Caleb. Okay, cool. Sounds good. And then finally sends a long one. I'm excited for the future. Let's get this shit going and turn it around. Letter N. Do what hasn't been done in years! ! In the meantime, 2 exclamation points. Fucking go kill! ! We'll talk soon! !
Hi, Caleb.
Fucking go kill is a great slogan for the Lions postseason.
Hi, Caleb. This is Ben Johnson's son. I need 40,000 V-Bucks.
I need some Robux.
I'm just picturing BoJack Horseman and the 3 kids that in a trench coat.
Oh, yeah.
That is just a running gag the entire series. Like, that is something that I guess Caleb Williams may or may not fall for.
like Woodchuck Hunter. It sounds like the fake text scripts from Madden franchise mode, like when you're like texting with your players.
Hi, Caleb. I need a sub to PODcast.
They did FaceTime him.
There is video of a FaceTiming of kids and Justin. It's from the kids' point of view, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the kids try to FaceTime Justin Fields. Jesus. Whatever.
Caleb Williams. Better than Jordan Love.
You're ready to declare that right now.
Wait, Caleb Williams or Jordan Love? I mean, or Justin Fields. Or
now you're trying to confuse me.
Okay,
or Russell Wilson.
Or Russ. Okay, rank
or
them
Aaron
all.
Rodgers.
Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. Just the answer's yes. The answer's yes. They're all better than Jordan Love. They're all better than Jordan Love.
He's not even the best quarterback on his own team. I don't know why we keep talking about this.
All right, let's get back to it. Let's talk some Lions coaching.
Let's do it. Let's do it because I know we also got a game tonight,
and both Ryan and I have to be on the same radio station.
Oh, where's my invite? No, I'm kidding. Pride to Detroit PODcast. Let's talk a little bit about the coaching searches that have been going on. Let's talk about some Lions coaches who have been in the news. It's been pretty well known that one of the fears coming out of this season is whether or not the Lions will be looking to replace one, if not both, of their coordinators. And certainly enough, we've had quite a few interviews for Ben Johnson and for defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. We'll try to run down all of this stuff where we can as far as these jobs, their openings, and some of the things that have happened yet. Let's start with Ben Johnson because I think, Jeremy, he's the meatiest name out here. Yeah. He's the one that demands a lot of publicity. I would say I'm not sure he's the one, most set to become a head coach this cycle, but let's put a pin in that. So I believe the interviews so far he has taken have been for the Raiders, the Patriots, and now the Patriots job was filled over the weekend by Mike Vrabel in a very odd way that the Patriots went about their coaching hire.
Man, I really thought Aaron Pat Hamilton had a chance.
Aren't you kind of surprised? Very selective Ben Johnson took a Patriots interview.
Well, I liked the report that came out that insiders are running with this. Like the Patriots are going to give Ben Johnson the opportunity to blow them away. But if not, I believe they're closing in on Mike. No, come on, dude. You're hiring Mike Vrabel. Everyone knew you were hiring Mike Vrabel. It's the only reason you decided to deep six Mayo on this.
Man,
That's why I'm surprised Ben Johnson wasted his time. Good on Aaron Glenn, who said, no, thanks.
Well, I think the reason, Ryan, I would think the reasons for Aaron Glenn are very much so like, hey, you're making, like, I don't care about the legality, whether or not arguing about the Rooney Rule, but like you quickly interview Pep Hamilton, Byron Leftwich, and you fire a first-year black coach in Mayo. Like, kind of see the reason Glenn would turn that down.
yeah, and good on Aaron Glenn for not dealing with any of their BS. But man, it just am I the foolish one for thinking that Pep Hamilton had a chance? Like, am I as big a am I as big of a fool as somebody who would maybe write 10,000 words about the Green Bay Packers making it to the Super Bowl? I'm just sorry. Okay, we're talking about coaches. I'm sorry. So
I mean, you want to bring up potential trades from X Crosby too while we're at it, Ryan?
yeah, well, we could really put on the tinfoil hats. But as you're saying, Chris, Raiders, Patriots job that's now filled by Vrabel, NFC North.
Yeah, and then the two big ones. I think the two real live ones here are Bears and Jaguars. So we got 3 for Ben Johnson, and what do you think? I want to ask you guys what you think about those jobs so far, and I'm seeing how much we can remove the fan from it, and saying which one of those feels like the best fit for Ben Johnson, because I feel like there's extenuating circumstances to all of them, and I have my own answer, but it comes with a really big but, and I'm like really still trying to process it.
All right. So yeah, let's talk about the 3. Let's talk Raiders, Bears, Jaguars. You look at the Bears and Jaguars, they both have young quarterbacks who could be really good. The Raiders don't have that. They decidedly don't have that.
Ooh,
So
wow, sorry, Aiden O'Connell.
Exactly.
And congratulations to Antonio Pierce playing their way
today, Ryan.
playing their way out of that number 1 pick too. Like very Raiders.
I'm just saying, poor Aiden O'Connell catching strays from Jeremy.
He's just watching this podcast in a fedora with dice in his pocket and is wondering why he's catching strays.
Kicking the dice a little bit closer. But also, I think the Raiders are the most attractive team here for Ben Johnson because Jeremy fired their general manager. So they're very clearly giving Ben Johnson a clean slate to choose from.
Yes.
And you want to make all the jokes about quarterbacks. When you have Tom Brady courting you, there's something to that.
Right.
That's a very odd side story to this divisional round, because if people don't know at home, Fox is calling Commanders Lions, which means Tom Brady's going to be in Detroit. Which I think there's some questions about. Hey, we're talking about a minority owner for the Raiders who, by all accounts, the sudden turning of heads from Tom Telesco is safe to firing Tom Telesco is coming from the facade of this is Tom Brady running the show. And now Tom Brady running the show and making the big push for Ben Johnson is suddenly going to be in the same building with him this weekend.
Saying sweet things about him all broadcast.
They can't be in the production meeting together though, so I'm sure there won't be any foul play because it's in the rules. But like, okay, so I think a lot of people have hooked on to the Ben Johnson quote from last year that was like, hey, there are only 7 of these jobs every year. By year 2 or 3, 4 or 5 of them have been replaced already. I want to go to the place where I'm set up for success the most. And I think some people have taken that and twisted it a little bit and thinking he's going to go where the turnaround is the quickest and easiest. He's going to go where the roster is at the best, where the quarterback is there, where everything is in place for him for immediate success. I don't think connecting those 2 dots is necessarily right. I think when he says, I want to go to a place where I have the best chance of success, it means buy-in from the top down. It means an organization that sees his message and will be able to complete what he wants. Because, I mean, Ben Johnson is confident enough to bet on himself. I don't think he needs to be handed a championship level roster. I mean, you're obviously not going to get one for a team, but so I'm kind of with you. I like this Raiders job is the one that I'm like, okay, he's going to have a ton of cap space to build whatever kind of roster he wants. He's going to have a GM that he can get in line with, and he has a guy that apparently is holding the reins to this roster who knows how to build a good NFL team in Tom Brady. Like, that to me is a pretty good structure of success. And I know the Raiders have become a laughingstock, and I know their ownership is also a laughingstock, but you look at the Bears, they're not changing GMs, it certainly seems like. Their ownership has been in mess. You look at the Jaguars, they're not even sure still if they're going to keep their general manager or not. They keep, I was going to say balking, but maybe that's too on the nose.
Balking? Yeah, no. We can do that to Trent Baalke. Like, we do puns about Trent Baalke. Why is Trent Baalke puns the line you are drawing here?
I don't know. It just felt wrong. And so, like, if I'm picking between those three that already are giving off better vibes in their coaching search, it's kind of the Raiders.
I want to make the case for the Jaguars because, like, I don't know. One of the things with Ben Johnson is I don't know if he really wants to be the quarterback, like, you know, the raiser of quarterback, the quarterback whisperer. He has a good rapport with a established, young, but like established quarterback in Jared Goff, who Jared Goff knows what he wants to do. And clearly, like we've talked about with the stumble bomb and a lot of other stuff, clearly he likes having that relationship. And I feel like he could have that same relationship with someone like Trevor Lawrence. And we can make fun about what the Jags are doing, but clearly if it is an issue that you don't want to work with Trent Baalke, Shad Khan's made it very clear, Trent Baalke's not going to be a problem. And that should be the case because Trent Baalke, I don't think, is a very good general manager at all. But either way, like I'm not saying he's handed a great roster in Jacksonville, but the Brian Thomas Jr. is a very fun young wide receiver to work with. Trevor Lawrence, I don't know what Trevor Lawrence is, but if you want to do the reclamation thing with him, if you want to prove that people are wrong about Trevor Lawrence, just like they were wrong about Jared Goff, okay, there you go. Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby. Like, there's so much to like about the Jacksonville roster. And I feel like every year I get suckered into believing what they can do, and then it doesn't happen. And I feel like of all the teams out here, this isn't a rebuild job. This is a problem of schematical for the Jaguars. And I feel like that's where he could go and have that impact right away. And if what guarantees you a second, third, fourth year better than anything is hitting the ground running very well. And I feel like with some place like Jacksonville, where as long as you get the assurance from the owner that they're going to be patient, but you know, it's an open, here's the other thing. Like, you won't have to deal with the Chiefs. You won't have to deal with the Lions.
True. That is
the
true.
AFC South is completely open for you.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's the best argument against the Raiders, right? Is that you have to go against the Chiefs, you have to go against the Chargers, you have to go against
the Chargers.
The Chargers are on the way up, all right? Who's the team? Oh, Broncos. Like, all three.
Broncos.
Like,
Why?
Yeah, those are three playoff teams.
Yeah, well, I think we found out who the Denver Broncos were. We can go back and look at their win and loss schedule.
You're talking about year one of the Chargers and the Broncos. They both overperformed. Like, that is a strong division that you're going into. A healthy division.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how long that lasts. I don't know. Sure. Here's what I'll say about Ben Johnson is that you need to look at maybe potentially who Ben Johnson could bring with him as like general manager, because I think that's where I start to see like some of the tea leaves for Aaron Glenn.
Yep.
And not necessarily like, do I think the Jet situation with Aaron Rodgers is the best situation? Probably not, regardless of where Aaron Rodgers plays or if he doesn't play there. But like when you have somebody like Chris Spielman who's interviewing for the general manager job with the New York Jets, and you have Aaron Glenn who has a history with the New York Jets because that's where he got his start as an area scout.
Lance Newmark also interviewing for that Jets GM job, former 28 years in the Lions front office.
So people that you have familiarity with, like that's why the Raiders job to me is, well, the GM job is open. And that's almost saying like, Ben Johnson, who do you want to, buy the groceries for your football team? And that's why Raiders to me is by far and away the job, at least on a surface level. Ben Johnson can say, yeah. However, there might be another job that he could potentially interview once the Lions season is over with. that is at least mildly interesting from a point of patience, because the Dallas Cowboys have a long history of patience with Jason Garrett.
True.
And I mean, Mike McCarthy maybe even overstayed his welcome a little bit. I don't know. But like there is some semblance of patience with Jerry Jones that Ben Johnson to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it's at least something to consider.
Do you guys want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys? Because like I know Jeremy, you during the break we were talking a little bit with Mike McCarthy, and I know he's being tied with the Bears now. But I mean, for the Cowboys, it is kind of laughable they've shot themselves in the foot this late in the process. But like they'll be in the same boat as anyone else trying to hopefully like, and I'm sure like if they suddenly come knocking for either Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn, they're going to want to probably take those meetings with the Cowboys before anything else. I don't think either of those guys, like I don't see the appeal of the Cowboys job is the big issue. But I know you had something to say on this entire situation with McCarthy and the Cowboys.
It's just an opportunity to point and laugh at the Cowboys, because I don't even know what they've been doing for the past week. Apparently they haven't been negotiating with Mike McCarthy. They decided not to make a decision right away.
They still blocked him from interviewing the Bears job.
Right. And so this past week, if you don't know the coaching rules, because they are complicated for playoff teams, this was the only week where you could do a first-time interview with teams with a bye week. So if you wanted to interview a Lions or a Chiefs coach, this past week was the only opportunity to do so. That's why those guys, you know, their schedule was full, right? Glenn did 5 interviews. Johnson did 4. Now those teams, the 4 and the 5 interview, if the Lions make it all the way to the Super Bowl, they can do their second interviews in that Pro Bowl week, the first week before, or you know, the first week between the conference championship and the Super Bowl. They conduct those second interviews with those Super Bowl teams. You cannot do your initial interview during that week. You have to wait all the way until the end of the Super Bowl. So that means teams could have Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn could have second interviews with 3 or 4 of the teams before you even get in the door. And you, for what? For what? What did that extra week get you? Did you get more clarity on this situation? You better have, because it may have cost you the best coaching candidates out there right now.
Well, you know what's most important, Jeremy, is that Jerry Jones got his headline ahead of a NFC wildcard game. And that's really what matters to Jerry Jones at the end of the day, is the headline. Right, Ryan?
I think so, but also maybe we're looking at Kellen Moore. Can you imagine that character arc? Kellen Moore returning to the Dallas Cowboys to be their head coach?
Well, all of their coordinators have been... Wait, I forgot. Where is Kellen Moore right now? I've completely forgotten.
He's the offensive coordinator for the Eagles.
So he's on the Eagles. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I was going to say, because one of the quirks of terminating the contract with Mike McCarthy is all of their coordinators are now to the wind as well.
Right.
Like, they're free. I don't know where they go, but like, you know, suddenly you've got a bunch more candidates in the pile, and sure, I guess.
Good luck, Dallas. Off to a great start.
Yeah. Maybe you can interview Cliff Kingsbury after this week.
Okay, Aaron Glenn.
Yeah.
So his interviews are Jets, Saints, and then the same 3 as Ben Johnson that are still open: Raiders, Bears, Jaguars.
Yep.
So let's do the same thing now that we've got the inking of like the Saints. I think seems like the most natural to a lot of people, but I guess the big question is once again is on GM Mickey Loomis, and that's not someone that's going to ever get fired, considering how close apparently Mickey Loomis is to Saints ownership, and just ultimately the position of the Saints right now, which is cap hell. It is real, it exists, and you effed around and found out about cap hell. You still got Derek Carr. Spencer Rattler isn't who you thought it's going to be. It does feel, Jeremy, like the wins are there for Jets, but like I see him as a live dog for both the Raiders and Bears jobs too.
Yeah, the heat doesn't seem as hot as it does with the Jets and the Saints, and part of that I think is just the natural former ties to the Saints, former ties to the Jets as a player. It does feel like things are trending towards the Saints. maybe the Jets too, because of the GM stuff we were talking about, that they're poking around with Chris Spielman, they're poking around with Lance Newmark, guys that Glenn would certainly be comfortable working with, and I think he'd be comfortable working under Loomis too, right? He has plenty of experience working under Loomis as a defensive backs coach. So I think those are the two very, very strong front runners at this point. And my only question from the Saints, well, I think you pointed out why the Saints job wouldn't be that great for Aaron Glenn because of the salary cap situation. I don't think their roster is strong enough to necessarily look great in year 1 or year 2, and then year 3 is when you're finally pulling out of salary cap hell, and it's almost going to be like a rebuild from there. So it doesn't feel like a great job from there, but New Orleans matters to him, right? The last press conference that he talked about the tragedy in New Orleans a couple weeks back, and how much that place means to him. And sometimes that emotional pull can lead to you maybe doing something that might not look the most rational on paper. And so it would not surprise me if he takes the Saints job, despite the fact that it doesn't, from the outsider view, look like the most appealing job. And same with the Jets. I think a fresh reboot. I think the challenge of winning in a big market like that would be appealing to Aaron Glenn. I think you can probably just get rid of the Aaron Rodgers situation with a snap of your fingers, and if there is a franchise that needs a culture builder like Aaron Glenn could be, it's the New York frickin' Jets.
So they should definitely go back to Rex Ryan.
That's right.
Is what you're saying.
I would not hate it.
I think the one fly in the ointment, though, comes from the Cowboys' decision today, because I've seen people saying, like, there's going to be real interest from the Saints in Mike McCarthy too. So I think at the end of this coaching cycle, like, Mike McCarthy lands in one of these spots. I don't feel like it'll be the Raiders. There isn't really a lot drawing to that, but it seems like there's definitely interest from the Bears, and it seems like a job that Mike McCarthy, familiar with the division.
Yep.
You have Chicago, and you have this apparent interest in the Saints. Like, I don't know, like, you're going to land in one of those spots. So I just kind of want to take a second to kind of like point and laugh at Bears fans who, for since week 6, after going on a 2-game losing streak or whatever, like,
yeah,
you're already like, pining for Ben Johnson and all the great things he's going to do with your young quarterback and your offense that's readily built. And, we have so much Ben Johnson, like, it's a turnkey, right? Like, just hop in this car. Like, it's fine. Turn the key. You'll be able to get to your destination.
I do feel like, and I'm going to really try to take a step back on this, because I don't think it's going to be the one that happens. But again, I think the prompt was best fit. I feel like the best fit for Aaron Glenn is the Bears. Some of the stuff that came out after what happened with Matt Eberflus and some of the reports from Bears players was like, we just wanted to be coached.
Yeah.
Like, Matt Eberflus wasn't coaching us. We just, like, wanted coaches to talk to us. And what is the pivot video? It's Aaron Glenn talked about how he was sitting down with Tracy Walker talking through film. And Aaron Glenn is a defensive mind, and we know how that plays in Chicago, and we know how that organization thinks about defense over everything else. And then he could like go and hire an offensive coordinator to let them be the mad genius to work on someone like Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
It makes all the sense. I think that is the bet on my board right now, independent of everything. Even, again, independent of the fact that apparently there's a power struggle happening between Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, that feels like the best fit for Aaron Glenn. But I don't think it's going to happen, because the Bears, more than anything, are really dumb. I'm not saying that as a matter of opinion. I'm just saying that as an extenuating circumstance right now. That once again, Kevin Warren is apparently trying to make like power moves in public over Ryan Poles. That they've retained Ryan Poles in the first place. That they seem enamored with Mike McCarthy. Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but if it happens, that's an incredibly savvy move for the Bears if they would land Aaron Glenn.
I hear what you're saying, and I think most of what you're saying is right. The problem is just there's so much focus on the offense right now, because it's such they're so pathetic on that side of the ball, right? They They
Sure.
have been for decades. Now,
Forever. They've never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards.
Right.
But I just don't think
throwing an offensive coordinator at head coaching position hasn't worked for them either, right? The Matt Nagy hire did not work for them. So maybe just going the culture route and trusting that. I mean, you obviously have to vet Aaron Glenn in these interviews. Okay, what's your plan for the offense? Who you're going to hire? Like, you have to trust and you have to hear that process out and be okay with it. But I think that's the reason why they're ultimately not going to do it, is because they are understandably focused on fixing the offense. They just haven't figured out how you do that. How do you fix it? And like I said, sometimes going the offensive coordinator route isn't the way to do it. Isn't going to get that problem fixed. But
Caleb
you're
Williams
eventually going to hire an offensive mind that is going to be critical to that franchise turning it around, and that's where you're relying on Aaron Glenn to use his ability to build a culture and build a place where people want to be.
And I think, again, like going back to that, like you saw the progress Thomas Brown was making with Caleb Williams, and all that progress went out the window when suddenly, hey, you're the interim head coach. Now you have to handle everything else. You can't just work with the quarterback. You can't just work with the offense. You have to care about everything else. Yeah. And I think to your point about Matt Nagy, like that's always the risk on these things.
Yep.
Can I ask you, Ryan, since we should talk about this too, what are the chances either one of these guys comes back to Detroit, though?
I feel like there's a better chance that Ben Johnson comes back than Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, I agree.
In spite of the hot name, yes.
Yeah, I do, because I feel like Ben Johnson's going to be a little bit more picky. That's not saying that Aaron Glenn's in a hurry to get out of there. It's just I think that it feels like Aaron Glenn... I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but like it just seems like Aaron Glenn's ready.
I mean, Dan Campbell's out there literally cutting a promo for Aaron Glenn, right? I feel like he's not trying to push him out the door, but he's trying to send a very clear message to this team. He is a fit. I don't care where you're at. I don't care what you're trying to do in the future. Aaron Glenn is a fit because he's going to do what Dan Campbell did and set a culture. And every single one of those franchise openings could use it. And that's why, like, to me, that's why he's a better fit than Ben Johnson to a lot of these jobs. And it's not because I think Ben Johnson's going to be a bad head coach, but no matter where you are, if you are in the middle of a head coaching search, you need a culture setter. You need a guy who can build from the ground up. And I'm certain Aaron Glenn can do that just by the kind of person he is. That's not exactly how Ben Johnson is necessarily going to lead. That's not how Ben Johnson has seen success on his side of the ball. I'm not saying he can't be a culture setter. I'm not saying he doesn't relate to his players like Aaron Glenn does, but that's Aaron Glenn's superpower.
Yeah, he clearly has connection with his players. I'm just not in the way that Aaron Glenn does.
Right. Exactly.
All right.
But I'm kind of under the belief right now they're going to lose both. I know this fits with my wet blanketing and all that sort of stuff, but I just feel like there's at least 2 or 3 candidates where it seems like there's mutual interest with Aaron Glenn, whether it's the Jets, Saints, or whoever. And then it's clear the Raiders are making a strong push to Ben Johnson. They fit him in the last second in his schedule. And as we talked about before, I think there's reasons why Ben Johnson would want to go to Vegas. I mean, not literally going to Vegas. It's a terrible place to be, but going to that organization makes sense.
Wow, just Jeremy taking a battle axe to Vegas out of nowhere here. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I still think it's a good chance they lose both. I just also think that, like, we've talked about it before, like, don't be afraid if the Lions decide they're going to want to promote from within too, because they've raised up all these other guys like Kelvin Shepard and Tanner Engström and Antoine Randall L, which is kind of, I'm wondering how much this could get rated further, because now you're seeing some, like, down the line here. I believe 49ers had interviews in for Deshea, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, Deshea Townsend.
Yep.
Towson and Jet Modkins. Modkins for their special teams coordinators, Towson for their defensive coordinator. But that's the DBs coach for the Lions, and this has been quite the turnaround for DBs. And Aaron Glenn's specialty is DBs, so it's all kind of like following that DNA. And the Seahawks were interviewing Hank Fraley the offensive line coach, for their offensive coordinator position. I'm not sure how likely any of those are, and I don't think Hank Fraley is your first choice to, replace Ben Johnson if you're hiring from within as a offensive coordinator. But it's clear, like, this is going to be kind of a yearly thing for the Lions if they continue success after Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, where we've talked about this before and half joked about it that we could have a Dan Campbell coaching tree. And this is what comes with that. You have to be good about finding guys the next man up on coordinators as much as on the team.
And, they've never had to replace two coordinators in one offseason. I'm not going to pretend like they've weathered that storm before, but they did lose Todd Wash and Deuce Staley in one offseason. And they replaced both those guys eventually with two of the most well-respected guys at those positions in Scotty Montgomery and Terrell Williams. Dan Campbell's got some pull, man. He's got a long Rolodex, and he's got a lot of influence. And so I'm with you. Like, it's probably more likely that they do, get one of these guys internally, because they remember, like, Dan Campbell has loved Aaron Glenn for a long time and realized how good of a coach he is. And same with Ben Johnson. They've had a couple of years to figure out a succession plan. Dan Campbell, by now, almost certainly knows what he wants to do. But at the same time, he is not going to do a sham of a hiring process that the Patriots did, right? He's a guy that's going to go through the full process of, let me bring in some guys. Let me talk to some guys. Maybe I'm pretty confident in Kelvin Shepard, but I have an opportunity to talk to this guy and this guy and this guy. They're going to do their due diligence, but they're also going to have a pretty set plan in place because they've had a couple of years now.
Yeah, we're so far removed from Anthony Lynn, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
talk about how Dan Campbell handled that, right? You want to talk about pressure and all that stuff, like Dan Campbell, Anthony Lynn. It's clearly not working out. I'll call plays. I'll have Ben Johnson in my ear.
Yeah.
And then I'll just eventually promote Ben Johnson to offensive coordinator, because remember that whole song and dance was like, is he going to be calling plays? Who's going to be calling plays? It's like, Ben Johnson's never called plays. Now Ben Johnson is the, hottest ticket in the offseason for however many years in a row now. Like, yeah. I don't know. Like, and I guess that is what I was trying to search for and find, is like, I think Aaron Glenn as a culture setter is more of a ready now coach than the hot offensive mind who, as Chris has pointed out, for every Sean McVay, there's a few Matt Nagy's. There's another Eric Bieniemy. There's, so.
Yeah, it's just, it's tough. It's tough because it's so different. You want the guy for the coordinator, but not realizing, like, oh, well, suddenly as a head coach, he can't really be the coordinator anymore. Right. It's more responsive. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. And, like, you can get a Sean McVay or a Kevin O'Connell out of it, but you could not. Mystery box could be a boat. But I think, look, I don't think it's going to be easy sledding in spite of all these guys to maybe replace both of them if it does happen. And we've seen pushback. I mean, we've seen teams like clearly struggle with, like, the Eagles lost both their coordinators after their Super Bowl run. They took a step back the year next, but I mean, they still found other guys, and they're still once again back, and they won the NFC East this year, and they're back in the playoffs. Like, you can weather this storm. It's not the end of it. And if you believe Dan Campbell is more than just his coordinators, you have to trust that he has an eye for talent and what he wants for the rest of the team, and he will go out and try to replace it. But but ultimately, the Lions' run isn't done right now either.
True. Did we talk Spielman? Do we want to talk real quick on Spielman?
We touched on Spielman in regards to the Jets. Did you have anything else on him?
No, I mean, not really, other than it caught me off guard. He'd been noted in several interviews since he landed in Detroit that he wasn't that interested in climbing up the ranks in Detroit. But it's been 4 years. He's probably learned a lot on the job. He's had his hands in everything, which is exactly what you want out of a general manager. And of course, Rick Spielman is helping the Jets search. So that has an impact on him landing that interview for certain. I don't think he's going to go. But I think maybe, this has now changed my perception of how long Chris Spielman is going to be here, which was before last week, my perception was at least until they win a Super Bowl. But now maybe not. Now maybe, I think it would be a pretty big swing for the Jets to do that. I don't know how good Chris Spielman is as a talent evaluator. He would help dig out a good foundation and set a good culture. And if you pair that with Aaron Glenn, I think they'd be on the right step. But you have to find someone who picks the players themselves. And that's just something that Chris Spielman doesn't have a ton of experience doing. He's had his hand in it, but he doesn't have. I would rather with my general manager go with the guy who has had years and years and years of college scouting experience, like a Brad Holmes. But if you really want to go hard in on the let's build a culture first, then I guess Chris Spielman would make sense.
Well, I believe their other interview was with Ryan Grigson as well, who I believe right now is the senior vice president of player personnel with the Vikings and has served as a general manager before for the Colts.
Yeah.
So this might just be them covering their bases. They might have real interest or it might just be the Rick Spielman tie, as you say.
Why don't the Jets want to hire Ben Johnson?
That might be you're not interested in us. We're not interested in you then. No, I don't know.
I found that interesting, Ryan. I'm going to just imagine with the situation with Aaron Rodgers, that's just not going to happen. Like it's like, okay, well, because I don't know. It feels like ownership wants to have one more go at it with Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not sure.
I can't imagine being Aaron Glenn and thinking like, yeah, I want to go hang out with that guy all the time.
The reason
Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers trying to come over to Aaron Glenn's house and sit down and watch tape?
I'm convinced the reason Ben Johnson and the Jets have no mutual interest is because when I pleaded for someone in the Lions organization to put we're putting Madden ratings into our personnel decision story on Ben Johnson's desk, someone actually did it. So you're welcome.
Oh, man.
We good?
I think we're good.
I know this is probably coming out by the time we do it. Do we want to say anything about the game tonight? Do you guys have any thoughts for the people who might be listening into the future?
I hope you are all living in a future in which the Lions are the only NFC North team left without even having to play a playoff game. That would be wonderful.
The last thing that I want to have swirling around on my social media and my sports media consumption is, I guess the NFC North wasn't really that good, huh?
Okay.
I'm just tired of seeing Vikings fans talking about how apparently it's fair to relocate this game because they won 14 games. Carly Simon, people. This song ain't about you. What do we have coming up this week, Jeremy? We will have preview back. We will have purview back.
Nice. Yeah, we're gonna have a full slate of everything. I know we're working on a little bit of a shortened week, but we're gonna fit a pretty late midweek mailbags live Tuesday night, late Tuesday night, because we're gonna have some late locker room availability as well, and then we'll do a first bite for Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers. So if you haven't already and you miss First Bite, our preview podcast, it's still happening, but you have to go to pridedetroit.com/subscribe to get access.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And whenever the off season comes, I've got some plans in mind as well. Also, I'm going to try to be getting, now that my home is a little more in order and I'm no longer missing internet, I am going to try to be live more on Twitch for football conversations and other things. So twitch.tv/nodecaf, NODEKAF. I will throw that out there. And for everyone who's been asking for the Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid recipe, it is up. It is available on Pride to Detroit. It is never just a recipe, but I have been enjoying a very stiff glass of it right now, and I think it's my finest work. I had a friend say I should do tiki drinks, and I probably will. Either way, we're done. Ryan, do we have anything else from you?
Go Rams, go.
Detroit Rams?
Oh gosh.
Let's not do that.
Never mind. It was all a mistake. I don't have anything to say.
Folks,
End
we'll
this
see.
thing.
Yep. Folks, we'll see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
Bring out the shirts.
Kroger ass shirts.
Here's the thing. If the Rams do win tonight, I think I'd rather face the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, even though the Eagles are the better team. I could not handle a Lions-Rams NFC Championship game. The narrative would be leaking out of my ear.
There isn't enough muting and hiding I can do to escape her. She is inevitable.
And yet, on the other hand, I will. Hold on.
Kelly's not even into the equation with me. I don't need to hear the Kirby versus.
Oh
Stafford,
yeah, no, I got asked about it again.
Stafford,
But I would still rather take all of the baggage of Lions Rams over a third Lions Vikings NFC
I agree.
game
I agree.
for the championship.
I agree.
I would still rather do that.
I don't think it would happen, but it would stab me in the heart if the Vikings beat the Lions in the NFC Championship game. For Lions to sweep them in the regular season, only to lose out to them on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm not even putting this into words. I'm not even letting that enter.
Oh man, I don't know what would be worse. Losing to the Vikings in the NFC Championship game or losing to Kelly Stafford's husband in the NFC Championship game at Ford Field.
What about losing to the... So the Eagles are so we're all wanting to play the Eagles is what we're saying because of less drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine that.
Partially just because I want to see Dan Campbell cause Nick Sirianni to
Oh, Nick Sirianni will try to punch him.
Spontaneously combust. Nick Sirianni will lose his mind in a game he has to coach against Dan Campbell.
He might pull a Jim Schwartz at the handshake at the end of the game.
Yeah, right?
Where's Big Dom? How wild is that? We know the name of a security officer because it's the Eagles.
Apparently that security officer needs to be patrolling the stands during Eagles games because, my God, the videos that I'm seeing coming out of that game. Talk about some embarrassing fan behavior actually caught on camera.
Hold on. That security officer has around his neck on a chain Italy.
He's
the Italian boot.
You get to claim him.
No. His name is DeSandro. I knew I could claim him, but I've never seen one of mine wearing the boot of Italy. That's jewelry. That's a level I can't claim.
Yeah. Well, man, I don't like the idea of the Vikings beating the Lions in the NFC Championship game. I really don't like the Rams, and I don't care about the Eagles.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The
good news is
let's just beat the best team in the NFC.
Let's beat everyone.
Yeah.
Who do you want to see out of the AFC? Is I think the bigger question.
Chiefs.
Oh. Yeah, I think it's
really.
I mean, maybe the Texans, but
well, realistically,
in an ideal world, yes. But I think the winner of the Bills-Ravens game is going to go to the Super Bowl.
I don't.
I don't want to say it. I kind of feel like the winner of Bills-Ravens wins the Super Bowl.
Wins the Super Bowl.
I think they're letting them beat each other up for the Chiefs.
Dude, the Ravens run game would just be, it feels like it's impossible to stop for 60 minutes.
I don't understand why Greg Roman is not getting more attention.
Maybe it's just because you have a unicorn at quarterback, and then you paired that unicorn with another unicorn as a running back.
Yeah. But to me, it's almost like a 1A, 1B, 1C when it comes to the best offense in football with the Lions, the Bills, and the Ravens. They are all so dynamic. They are all so impressive. They're all really, really fun to watch. He's with the Chargers? Who am I thinking about?
What are you talking about?
Todd Monken. That's
Todd
the
Monken,
new.
Monken,
Yeah.
Sorry,
Monken,
sorry,
yeah.
Monken. My fault. I'm a year behind.
Well, I'm going to assume the reason why Todd Monken isn't getting like a lot of attention is, well, besides what he's saying, but also like the hotness is you have to be a young offensive coordinator. Monken does not fit that
No.
at 58.
But also, don't you think that like so much of whether right, wrong, or indifferent, like so much of what has made Ben Johnson such a coveted coordinator is like, look at what he did with the guy that we all thought was toast. Like
Right.
we all thought Jared Goff was a nobody, and look
Right.
what Ben Johnson's turned him into. He can do anything. And it's like Todd Monken. It's like, oh, you have the
everything.
You have the guy who won unanimous MVP for the first time in NFL history.
Yeah.
There's some good AFC teams still.
I just think I feel like it's impossible to stop the Ravens offense for 60 minutes. Unless they get in their own way, right? And that's what happened in the AFC Championship game last year. Where
right. And I mean, I think there's significant questions on the defensive side of the ball for both the Ravens and the Bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your ticket is beating them in a boat race.
Bills put the Ravens in a headlock. The Ravens escape the headlock. They win, but they lose Derrick Henry because of some sort of injury.
No,
and then they have to play the
You're predicting an injury?
No.
I
Boo
know
this
how
man.
this universe goes for the Chiefs, brother.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know.
You're saying the game is going to be a war of attrition. It's going to be a Pyrrhic victory.
The Chiefs are going to get someone very softened for them to chew on.
There's going to be a Bills-Ravens hangover that the Chiefs are just going to walk all over.
I see the vision.
That's why you get the 1 seed, folks.
The thing, though, with the Texans' defense is like, why not just try to like, we're not going to let Pat Mahomes beat us. Like as far as like skill position players, like they are the team. Like you look at the Chiefs, and I think you look at their skill position players outside of maybe the Bills, but like still though, like the Bills' run game I think is just, even though it's so like up and down, it's a lot like the Chiefs.
Yeah, Cooks is good.
But I just mean like maybe both those teams, right? Like the Bills are Josh Allen. The Pat Mahomes, like he is the Chiefs.
Sorry.
Like so, like it's the quarterback argument with those teams. Like I don't see that, but like you see the Ravens and they're without their number 1 wide receiver, and it's like, don't matter, who cares? We'll just instead of, they ran so much 11 personnel against the Steelers earlier in the year that like, oh, they were just like, Isaiah Likely is going to be our leading receiver with 54 yards. Like he's going to be the top guy of the day. Otherwise, it's just going to be Lamar and Derrick Henry. And there's nothing you can do to stop that for 60 minutes. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess my original point is like the Texans. I think the Texans defense could at least like, they could beat the crap out of Pat Mahomes, and like they could be a team that at least like, it's going to be Kansas City's defense that has to win them another Super Bowl.
You're trying to talk yourself into the Texans beating them this weekend.
No, I don't think they can beat them. Not with the way that offense looks. Like, my God.
I just, the key to all of this on the Chiefs right now is the defense, and the defense has been playing very well for them.
Yeah,
I mean,
and like Nico Collins had a game finally that reminds you, oh right, Nico Collins is still one of the best wide receivers in this league. And when he can put up 120 yards, you can comfortably win a football game.
I mean, they comfortably won, though, because Justin Herbert threw 4 interceptions.
Yes. And I mean, that's their defense, coming up, and Herbert, I don't know if he chargered, if you want to say that, but either way, that was definitely coming back down to earth for a guy like Justin Herbert. Either way, like, I just don't see enough from I wonder if the Texans offense has enough to take out Steve Spagnuolo's defense. Speaking of Italians.
I don't think it does. All right. I'd like to get going here relatively soon, but we do have a list cast redemption request.
Ooh.
From How Am I Not Myself saying, rank the teams you don't want the Lions to lose to. Commanders, Rams, Vikings, Eagles. So the 4 teams left.
So just AFC,
NFC.
not NFC, not
Correct.
we're not. If they're in the Super Bowl, that's fine. Yeah. So Commanders, Vikings, Eagles, Rams.
So Commanders would mean that the Lions did the worst, because that mean they're losing the next round. But the other 3 would be losing to those teams in the conference championship game. So,
in that regard, I would say probably the Commanders are the worst team to lose to, just because to go out of these playoffs without winning a single playoff game would be, regardless of the 1 seed, that would be rough. After that, very easily the Vikings. I don't want to lose to the Vikings. I would probably even put them number 1 if we hadn't considered this divisional round for the Commanders, because I cannot stand their fans right now. I cannot stand this talk right now.
Yeah.
Like, it is.
That's why I want them to lose tonight. Just sit back and unblock Daily Norseman for a night and just watch the chaos unfold.
Yeah.
Because listen, it's still the bye week. We get to still have our feet kicked up for another night.
Yeah, I think that's my list: Commanders, Vikings, Rams, Eagles.
Yeah, I think
like Eagles would suck, but I feel like it's in the championship, and I think at that point people understand that that's the next best roster to your own is the Eagles.
I might put losing. I will. I'll put losing to Minnesota in the conference championship game is the worst outcome. Worse than losing this week to the Commanders. Commanders would suck. But I think you'd be like, well, it's Jane Daniels. They're coming on. It was still a magical season. It would be a huge disappointment, don't get me wrong. And it would suck to lose as an 8.5-point favorite at home in your first playoff game after a historic season. But God, I don't want to send the Vikings to the Super Bowl. So, Vikings, Commanders, Rams, Eagles.
I'll co-sign it.
Yeah.
I would even say that's mine too. Like, for me, Commanders, Vikings is like 1-1A.
Yeah.
So I can be talked into either way.
Who do we have winning tonight? Who do you think will win tonight?
I think the Rams are winning.
I think the wrong team is favored tonight.
Wrong kid died. I have the Vikings. I don't feel great about it, though. I still think Sam Darnold isn't as bad as he played last week.
I think the Rams are set up to do the same thing the Lions did to the Vikings.
It's possible. But Sean McVay is a little bit of a coward, as we have established.
He is, but I guess my question is for Kevin O'Connell. Are you going to go for it on 4th down in the fucking red zone again? Also, are you going to get extra turnovers gifted to you from Stafford like Jared Goff was gifting to them?
I have known Matthew Stafford to turn a football over a time or two. So
the Rams are really hot cold with their offense. I don't know which one shows up tonight.
I do know that Cooper Kupp is on like a milk carton right now. Like,
yeah,
he's getting old.
And that was why in my preseason bets article, I was like, I don't know, I think it's worth putting money on the Rams to win the NFC West. And then the first 6 weeks happened. It's like, oh God, I don't think that was a great bet at all.
Had you in the first half.
But I was hoping that Cooper Kupp's hurt. Once he comes back, they're going to go right back to being an incredible offense. I don't think that necessarily happened, but
no, but
they did it without
Cooper Kupp.
Right, without Cooper Kupp being the guy that he used to be, but it's just because they had Puka. But also, Jeremy's a big Michigan fan. No Blake Corum.
How much has he contributed this year?
I mean, Kyron Williams is still there.
No, I know Kyron Williams is the guy, but who's number 2 now?
Ronnie Rivers.
No, I'll just plug in and running back somewhere.
Oh my God!
RB2s don't matter. Can I at least have that?
Oh my God!
I
So
I
you're
want to
saying
call.
I know.
Jahmyr Gibbs
I
doesn't
know.
matter?
Oh, he's your RB2?
No, I thought you meant like the RB2 on football teams.
I
I'm
know,
like,
but you're saying Dave Montgomery's RB1?
he was coming in the season. Don't lie.
He was.
Be
He
real.
was coming in the season.
Hold on. I still want to call attention to the Rams defense, if nothing else. In that Jared Verse, I think, is a very good young pass rushing linebacker.
Yeah.
Kobe Turner, I think, had 8 sacks this year. Like they have the pass rush to really scramble Sam Darnold again. Like I'm going
It's
to
not
lean
consistent enough.
It's
they
not.
They have
It's
some
not-
individual weapons, but that's it. Like they don't have a team of pass rushers, you know?
Did the Lions have a team of pass rushers?
No, but they had an aggressive defense that has some balls. I'm not sure the Rams do. Actually, I have no idea if the Rams do. I don't know what the Rams blitz rate is.
I'd have to go look.
But knowing Sean McVay probably doesn't have many balls.
I don't think Sean McVay is caring about the defense.
You're probably right, but let me I think Ryan is looking that up, or maybe he isn't. I don't know. But either way, I have some alerts that I need to get to. Eric Wolf, thank you for the follow. Joe Eat Tiger 3 months. Subscribe to us on Twitch, says Campbell. Took the Lions job when it was not appealing, but Campbell wasn't anybody else's number one. True. It's actually a good point. I don't know why I use the word actually. That was a good point. Downgrade, thank you for the 8 months, says, is it weird how confident I am that the Lions are going to beat Washington? I'm happy I stuck with the Lions for my 31 years of life. Pats sound have sat love. Wait, what? Pats should have sat love. Pack should have sat love? I don't know.
What are you saying? I
right.
don't even know what you're...
Well, it says Pats sould have sat love Ryan, but I think should, and I think it's supposed to say Packers instead of Pats. That's why I was struggling, but I got it. I got you, downgrade. Sorry. Will the Great, thank you for the follow. Terrace Guy, thank you for the follow. Packafist, thank you for the follow. And Nick the Greek, 100 bits, says Chris Perfett is half Irish.
Okay.
Hold on, there's one more.
O'Burke, thank you for the follow.
No. There. Well, no. Sorry, it was a highlighted message. But
Oh,
when is someone going to make a life-size cake of Jeremy standing next to Brad?
David Reinfurt. If you go to that bakery and try to win playoff tickets and give them any ideas.
Oh, that's
So where do I don't even know where I find blitzing percentage right now. I'm trying to find...
they're 20th in the NFL
Okay.
Cowards.
in blitz rate.
None of them.
40 what's the 39.6% win rate on third down, 64% win rate on fourth down.
Cowards.
Actually,
Sam Darnold's going to pick them apart.
Oh my gosh. Could you
Calm down.
Hold on. Just think back to your August 2024 self. Could you
No.
ever imagine those
No.
words coming out of your
No.
mouth?
No. I could
Okay.
have been there of all the things that I was wrong about in 2024, the Minnesota Vikings are number 1 on the list.
For everybody.
How am I
I'm
not
just
myself? You just turned yourself into Stephen A. Smith. What am I looking at?
Check it out, y'all.
What is that?
I know that's an incomplete URL from a very long URL he tried to copy paste.
Check it out, y'all.
I can say that because I know who you are, and I can make fun of you for it. What? Stop it! No.
Oh, no,
We're not-
this
we're
cannot
not
be
doing
copy
this.
pasta.
No.
Now it's a bit. Oh gosh.
All right, we should get out of here.
Yes, sir.
As I said, we'll be live for midweek mailbag tomorrow night. Me and Eric. Do you have an idea when you're going to do the per view?
I don't know. I'm going to ask a couple people and see who all wants to join in for that.
Chris, you can't do it too.
Yes, I just did. What do you mean?
And then Ryan and I are working on a very interesting possible guest for First Bite. We still have to see if we can pull it off, but we got someone on the hook. We just got to reel them in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you responded?
No, I'm writing that email after I get off this call.
Great. All right. Okay. That's all we got.
It's not Joe Biden. It is somebody who has ties to Washington, though.
I would hope so. Not George Washington. Nope. Good guess, though. Keep guessing presidents. Let's see if you can eliminate all
Dan Steinberg.
Keep
More Dans.
Keep guessing ones that don't require a seance or a Ouija board.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
All right.
All right. You're
bye,
right.
everybody.
It's Matt Millen.
What about Matt Millen?